territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
Hello, Mack Pack. It's great to be back with you. You're listening to another episode of On the Move with Mack Worley III. This is the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. So sit back, relax. We have a really good show in store for you. The date is March 1st, 2015, and today's show is titled Net Neutrality, Orwellian Double Speak, U.S.S. Gabby Gifford. And we have a special guest coming on the show today. His name is Dan Sandini. This is episode 63, by the way, for those of you who are not familiar with the show. First things first, we broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't mind the fact that we weren't on last week. I apologize about that. We took last week off. We had a lot of stuff going on, and now we're back. And by the way, it seems like a really long time. You know, taking 1 week off, that seems like a long, long time to take off from the show. I don't like to do it very often. It seems like so long goes by, so much happens since I last had an opportunity to speak with you guys. You know, it just seems a little ridiculous. So, I try my best to be here every week and, deliver my analysis on what's going on in the news and try to give you guys my take on all things like liberty, guns, and government. Along those lines, that's the kind of stuff that we discuss. So, if you haven't done so already, please feel free to follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. That is SPREAKER/OnTheMoveShow. On Spreaker. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. And let me give you the rundown of some of the things that we're going to be covering on today's show here real fast. We're going to be covering in the Armed Citizen segment. It's our Weekly Defender segment. We're going to talk about armed citizens in the news who've used their firearms to defend their family, their property, something along those lines. Then at 5:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to be joined by citizen journalist Dan Sandini. He's a friend of mine. We're going to discuss some of the latest videos that he has released of a Portland imam. And they were at this, it was a kind of a summit, a forum of some kind, and they described themselves as a more moderate form of Islam, essentially, for this conference. So Dan and I were going to discuss that, and also I want to get his take on net neutrality a little bit and see what he has to say about it. You know, like me and many of you, obviously, net neutrality will affect us all. But citizen journalists in particular, you know, those of us who are reporting on the news, giving our analysis, just using our freedom of the press to get information out and discuss things, we have a potential here to really be affected negatively by net neutrality. And I'll give you my take on that a little later, but I want to hear Dan's. I like Dan. He's got a good head on his shoulder, and you know, I think that you guys will enjoy it, and I certainly will enjoy hearing his take on it as well. So, and then later in the Mack Attack, we're going to go into our feature topics for this episode in a lot of detail, and I mentioned it a little earlier here. We're going to have more of a deep dive analysis on net neutrality, why I think it's bad, really dive into this. And then we're also going to talk about our government's use of Orwellian Double Speak. For those of you who may not know what that is, Orwellian Double Speak was in the book 1984, where they take things, the government of this Orwellian society, and the reason why it's called Orwellian is because George Orwell is the one who wrote the book, 1984. And it's this society where the government has total control, and doublespeak is when they name something one thing, maybe it sounds good, like, for example, the Ministry of Love in 1984. That was one of the organizations of their government, the Ministry of Love. It sounds like a really great thing, doesn't it? Well, the Ministry of Love in 1984, the book, was actually where they tortured people. So we're going to talk about our own government's use of Orwellian doublespeak that we can see clearly today, and we're going to break that down a little bit, talk a little bit more. And then I want to talk about something that really just kind of got me angry. I won't lie. I was furious. I've been angry this whole week about the stuff coming out in the news. Net neutrality, I almost could not talk about it when I first heard about it. I was so upset. Just really infuriated, and even more so with this whole U.S.S. Gabrielle Giffords. All right, this is this is upsetting to me, and we're going to talk about that. And yes, it's a real thing, by the way. The Navy has named a ship after Gabby friggin' Giffords. So I'll give you my analysis on that as well. And also, I want to talk specifically because after net neutrality, all this stuff's going on. I've been kind of down about what's happening. I was trying to really just reevaluate things and trying to figure out, all right, how can we press forward? What can we do? What is the future going to look like? What's a worst case scenario? What's a best case scenario? Let's talk about all this and more. And I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on it. We'll cover a ton of other topics on the news. I'm sitting on a stack of articles, waist high right now. So it's a lot of stuff. So as usual, you guys can join the conversation. Anything that you would like to bring to the table, our lines are open. Feel free to give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that number is 360-450-5625. Or you can email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Like I said, any topics you have, please feel free to call us. Our Mack phone lines are open, so feel free to light them up, guys. Again, that number is 360-450-5625. Again, don't forget to check us out at our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. You can, again, follow us at Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can like us on Facebook or send us a message if you want to communicate on the show here on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Lots of original content on there. YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter and interact with us on Twitter during the show at Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. All right, so all that housekeeping stuff out of the way. Before we get any further into the show, before we take another step forward, I want to cover something that I particularly found nice this week. And I found it, and I want to share it with you guys. It's an article on godfatherpolitics.com, and it's titled, "Is This 12-Year-Old Black Critic of Obama Racist?" And there's a YouTube video to go with it. And I really like this video. I'm going to go ahead and play it for you guys in its entirety. Again, this is a 12-year-old boy, and I believe his name is CJ, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, his name is CJ Pearson. This video, by the way, it's received over 550,000 views. And, yeah, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. So anyway, here is CJ.
Hi, my name's CJ Pearson, and today I wanted just to applaud Mayor Rudy Giuliani for his comments about President Barack Obama. Here's the truth of the matter. I don't want to be politically correct. I don't care about being politically correct at this point. President Obama, you don't love America. If you really did love America, you would call ISIS what it really is. An assault on Christianity, an assault on America, and a downright hate for the American values our country holds. Of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and every single thing that our country stands for. If you loved America, President Obama, if you loved America, you wouldn't try to take away what hardworking Americans have worked for their entire lives. You wouldn't do this if you loved the people of America. And when it takes a mayor, the former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, to call you out on your downright hatred for America, then so be it. I applaud him for his comments, and I definitely do hope that one day, other people will get enough guts to speak out against your downright hatred for this nation. When you aren't willing to defend our country against the evil of terrorism, domestic and abroad, you don't love our nation. You just don't. It makes no sense to me, and I don't understand why you would. Here in America, we fight for what we believe in, and we will destroy and annihilate ISIS. Why? Because they attacked us, President Obama. When they kill innocent Americans that have done no wrong except report on what is their constitutional right as journalists, and you do nothing about it, You don't care about their lives. You could care less. But here's what you need to realize. That here in America, we don't back down to terrorists. We fight them on their own battleground and we annihilate them to the very end. Here in America, we don't allow the government to take away what we work for. But we continue to work harder. We continue to work harder so that we may continue to succeed. That's what we do in America. And President Obama, if you really did indeed love America, you'd do the same. You'd fight for our values, domestic and abroad, and you wouldn't take away the right to the American people. Thank y'all.
So that was 12-year-old... clicked the link there, didn't mean to. 12-year-old C.J. Pearson in his message to President Obama. And, this is a conversation I haven't really gotten into too much. I honestly really don't care if Obama loves America or not. I think it's pretty obvious based on his actions that the argument can be made very clearly and eloquently that the man does not love his country, at least not the way it is. He may love a future version that he wishes to make America, but this is not particularly a conversation that I even have much interest in because, like I said, through his actions we see, you already know where he stands. You already know that he doesn't so much care for the America that we have. That's why he wanted to fundamentally transform this country. And, he comes from a background of radical leftists, progressives, communists. This is his upbringing, so it's no surprise that he actually doesn't love America. I'm just kind of curious why this conversation is being had now, 6 years into this. Why does it matter? I mean, what we need to be asking is, does Hillary love her country? And I would say that the answer is probably no as well. I think that the people who wish to transform this country and create a bigger government, a more robust government, for lack of a better word, that will have more control, more power, more redistribution of wealth. Those people don't love the country. Those people don't love the country as is. They may love some kind of utopian version that they may want to push us towards one day, but they don't love America as it is. And I think that's a problem. And I think those are the questions that we need to be asking, not does Obama love this country? We know he doesn't. And in fact, there's so many examples that are clear as day that he doesn't have even the smallest amount of respect for the country, the flag, our national anthem, the troops. No respect for these things. He has respect for himself and his ego. That's about it. I don't believe that there's any room anywhere in there for anything else. That's just my personal opinion, my take on it. But like I said, I don't find this conversation particularly that important to really cover because it's obvious. You've either made up your mind now or you haven't, and you're not going to. You're part of the uninformed voters, or perhaps you're not a voter, but you've either made up your mind or you haven't. Anyway, so let's go ahead and move on past this. I don't want to take up too much more time on this. I just thought that was a beacon of hope as far as I look at it. It's a bright spot in a sea of darkness. I continue to see bad things happening, more and more gloom and doom, more things that I feel like are pulling us in different directions we need to pay attention to, things that are really important, like net neutrality, for example. But I love the fact that a 12-year-old young man is speaking out, speaking his mind. I think it's great, and I'm really excited. I hope that the future brings more of this. And truly, I hope that we can find more 12-year-olds to speak out and speak for liberty. I think that's going to be good for us. And I think this is also a big credit to his family. He's got to have some amazing parents out there to have taught him, and taught him to think for himself, think critically. And I think he was a really good speaker for that matter too. One day I'd love to hear him do a podcast or something. That'd be great. CJ's podcast coming up. So check it out in the year 2022. Anywho, so at this point, guys, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break. When we get back, we're going to be joined by citizen journalist Dan Sandini, and we're going to discuss a whole bunch of different topics, primarily his latest videos where an imam was speaking at this self-described, more moderate version of Islam conference. So we're going to talk about that. He's going to give you his take on it. We'll play some clips. And then in addition to that, I want to get his opinion on net neutrality, and we're going to talk shop a little bit about that. So anyway, we'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
And we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. So when we last left the show, we were saying how we're going to have Dan Sandini on the line. He is on the line. We're going to be bringing him on in one moment here. And anyway, just to give you guys a little information of what we're going to be covering here, like I said, Dan has some of his latest videos that he's released, and they are of a imam at a self-described, more moderate Islam version of Islam conference, and they're discussing Islam, and he got a lot of interesting stuff on film, and I want to bring him on. He's going to talk about that, and then additionally to that, we're going to talk about net neutrality. So anyway, without further ado, we have Dan Sandini on the line. Dan, are you there?
I am here, Mac. How are you?
I'm doing great, and as usual, it's great to have you on the show. Before we get started, I want to have everyone get an opportunity to check out your website, all your social media. Can you blast that out real fast?
Sure. You can find all my videos at daylightdisinfectant.com, and I'm also on my major point of contact is my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Daylight Disinfectant, all one word. And you can tweet me. It was too long for the Twitter handle, so you can tweet me at Daylight Dis, and I will tweet back to you. I promise you. If you do that. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. DaylightDisinfectant.com, YouTube.com/Daylight Disinfectant, and at Daylight Dis on Twitter.
And Dan is one of our premier citizen journalists out here in the Pacific Northwest. I believe you have the claim to fame in the Willamette Valley or something along those lines, being the biggest YouTuber in that area. Is that right?
I'm number two, and it's always been this way. And I've been saying it since the very beginning. He was slow to start, I will say that, but he's come along fast. But the master of the 5-minute YouTube political video, I would even say nationally, is Laughing at Liberals. Laughing at Liberals, all one word, on YouTube. You really got to check out his channel as well. But I think he's got well over 2 million, if not 3 million views. Now he's cheated a little bit in there and had some sports videos in there too. But I've got what, 1,400,000 or something like that. We've been friends for a long time, and we've been going at it since '09. And so I'm the second. I'm number 2 is the short answer, Mac. But yeah, I hope your listeners go out to my YouTube channel and check out some of the whack job videos, as Laughing Liberals and I call it, of the left here in the Willamette Valley, and hit the subscribe button while you're there, and you'll get the latest videos. I just put one up just now, and so you get them as they come out if you hit subscribe. So
absolutely, and for those of you out there in listener land, members of the Mack Pack, if you haven't taken the opportunity yet to subscribe to either Daylight Disinfectant on YouTube or Laughing at Liberals on YouTube, you are missing out. They put out quality stuff. Every video that you guys have, it's just I watch every single one of these things. And you don't put on trash videos, you know what I mean? Everything you guys put out, I'm surprised and just fascinated. First of all, how the heck do you guys find all this stuff? I never know how you know where everything's going on.
You know how it goes in Portland, Mac. All you really have to do is turn your camera on. Somebody has a cell phone. And actually, if you're listeners, I know you have nationwide listeners, and you even have, folks over in areas of combat over in Iraq and Afghanistan and that sort of thing. And, thank you guys for your service. But if you're back in the States, if you want to go, there's 2 places in the United States that I don't think it gets any wackier, okay? One of them is the San Francisco Bay Area, and I think it's number 1. I would have to say it's number 1, but who wants to live in California, okay? But number 2, if you've never been here before, is Portland, Oregon. And you just cannot sit down in Portland without sitting on a whack job video. I guarantee you, if you turn your camera on, if you take your cell phone with you, your iPhone, and you flip it on, and everybody's a journalist now, just turn it on, you're going to get something crazy in Portland. And that's usually the case down here. So it's actually like shooting fish in a barrel here in Portland, Oregon. So make a trip out here. Come on out, stay at a hotel and take some videos. You'll be amazed at the number of crazy things. Absolutely. Hey Matt, can we talk about CJ for a second? I wanted to throw something in there really quick because I was listening to you talk to your listeners about CJ, the African American kid who could be considered a racist for criticizing the president. And here's what I had to say about that. And your question was a very, very interesting one. The way that you roused curiosity on this video was you said, is he a racist or not? And I have to inform you, Mac, before we leave that topic, I have to inform you that he cannot be a racist. And the reason why is because as they are teaching the teachers up in Hillsborough, for your listeners who are all over the place, Hillsborough is an adjacent community to Portland, okay? They're teaching something to the teachers, which they are also teaching in Portland, called critical race theory, okay? And critical race theory teaches that blacks cannot be racist. So if you're a black man out there listening to me right now, you cannot be a racist. Only the predominant culture inside of a society can be, according to these people and what they're teaching the teachers, is you cannot have reverse racism or racism. People cannot be racist against us, Mac. So he's safe. He can have racial prejudicial attitudes, but he cannot be a racist and he cannot practice racism. That is what is being taught to the teachers out here in Portland, Oregon. We've been fighting this. We've been fighting this critical race theory thing that they're trying to put in the schools, which teaches white privilege, that you and I have privilege, even though we may not be racist. We have white privilege, and we have to admit to that white privilege. I really don't want to go too far down that road, but part of what white privilege and critical race theory teach to the teachers, and now being taught to the students, is that blacks cannot be racist. Only the Asian people cannot be racist. The only people who can be racist in the United States of America are white people.
So pretty soon, essentially to that guideline, if the reports and projections are correct, in a few decades, white people won't be allowed to be racist. It'll only be the Hispanic community that'll be allowed to be racist.
That's great. I hadn't thought of that. Man, you've been at this game a long time.
I'm just saying, I can't wait for that day. I'm tired of that being thrown in my face. Every 2 seconds, somebody says,
you can't be racist.
You're a racist. You've got white privilege. Well, what about Hispanic privilege in the next few decades? This will be something I'll be interested to see. And one thing that really bothers me, I know this is kind of a topic that we weren't planning on talking about, but the whole idea that it's okay to be racist against white people, that to me is very frustrating because personally I kind of go by the whole Martin Luther King Jr. Thing where it's treat people based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin, and it seems like this whole concept, and people will be sitting there parading around saying Martin Luther King, but they don't think about this concept. In the same breath, they're talking about white privilege and how white people are racist and they should be treated differently. That is the exact opposite of what Dr. King wanted. And this is not the dream that he had. This is a perverted nightmare of his dream. So
I think you're absolutely right. I think that if Martin Luther King heard what's being taught in these sessions inside the public schools, that he would be horrified by what he heard, that blacks can't be racist against whites. Of course, everyone can be a racist. If someone calls me, and I've seen it happen, I'm laughing at liberals. He's got YouTube videos out there. He's had a Hispanic gentleman. I will call him a gentleman in the loosest form of the word, who calls him a cracker. He says, you're a cracker, and I find it very racist. And he goes through that whole litany too, saying, and laughing a little, says back to the Hispanic gentleman, he says to him, who accosted him in Pioneer Courthouse Square, he says, well, I find what you're saying is racist, and that's the first time I think I heard that he can't be racist, and you don't know what you're talking about. And now I have learned that actually in some certain mentally perverted philosophy of this critical race theory that they are teaching, and you'll find videos on, you just Google Daylight Disinfectant critical race theory. I've got videos up there of sessions at Portland State University, Portland Public Schools anyway, on critical race theory, and you can see that for yourself. So, but I really like your angle on that, Mac. That's one way I have not thought about that yet, is that there will come a time where white people cannot be racist because it's only the predominant culture. I've got the teaching materials, and I'm going to blog about it at some point, and they are fighting it very actively in the Hillsborough schools right now. But you know what, Mac? They're losing. I hate to say it. You were talking earlier about how you're disappointed and not feeling a little bit down. This guy has been asked to, hey, show me something in an accredited journal which criticizes critical race theory. And you know what? There's just not a lot of money out there for it, so there's not a lot of people getting it into accredited journals. So he's got to meet the bar. Okay, he's the guy who has to say the common sense will teach us, right, that everybody can be a racist. Okay, no matter what your skin color, you can be a racist. Okay, you can discriminate against people. But he's trying to get that taken out of there, that white people cannot be, that white people are the only people who can be racist. And he's right now he's losing that battle. I can tell you that right now. I don't have his name in front of me right now, but we've been talking, and he's trying to fight it, but he's losing that.
I played a clip a while back of Stacey Dash. She's a conservative, but she was one of the actresses that was in Clueless. I don't know if it's the movie or the show. I didn't watch either one, but either way, this is one of those topics that I find particularly disturbing because she's an African American woman, and she's being called an Uncle Tom, which, by the way, I think is a really racist thing to say, first of all, but second of all, she's being called this, and she is herself black, and what she's speaking out against Obama and big government. She's a conservative, and people are literally making it about race when she's not even discussing race. Her issues have nothing to do with race at all. They're the ones that made it a racial issue, which in fact means that they're the racists.
That's correct. And Mac, that's we're going to talk a little bit about net neutrality here. But again, just to reset the conversation a little bit, this is Dan Sandini, and if you go to my YouTube channel, Daylight Disinfectant, it's YouTube, all one word, Daylight Disinfectant. If you go out there, look at my top 10 videos list. I have a list that's out there. You will see on there a video of people of leftist protest in Portland, Oregon, organized by the Democrat Party, yelling racist remarks, including Uncle Tom, at blacks in the Tea Party. It happened in 2011. It's one of my biggest videos. I believe it has almost 200,000 views right now. If you go out there and watch that video, but they're calling her. They're standing there, and there's this group of leftists. You have every group in Portland. They're up there on the dais, and they are yelling down at the Tea Party. Look, there's the Uncle Tom. There's a black guy at our Tea Party. There's the Uncle Tom. There's the token black man, and they're pointing it out. They didn't count on somebody rolling on them. But that video got played on Fox News. It was on O'Reilly. It was on Glenn Beck. It was on Sean Hannity. It was on all the big stations. So a lot of people have seen that. And it's true. The left, everything that the left says about the right, the left is guilty of. And the thing that they hate is they can't delete our YouTube videos. They just don't know a way around that, Matt. And I'm scared to death of net neutrality and what it's going to mean for YouTubers like you and me and Laughing at Liberals, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners out there are also, really disenamored with what's going on with this net neutrality thing.
Absolutely. But before we actually get into net neutrality, because I want to give people a glimpse of some of the work that you do, and then we can get into net neutrality, because I want to illustrate how the work of citizen journalists is actually important. It's not like we're just blogging to nothing and we're just screaming and saying our opinions, although, sometimes that's what I do. But as far as, the work of citizen journalists, you guys are out there actually tip of the spear in the news cycle. A lot of, for example, Laughing at Liberals, his stuff gets picked up all the time by national media. So I want to show what you're doing, why it's important, and then we'll talk about net neutrality here and get into that. So first thing first, can you tell us a little bit about this latest video that you had with the imam at the more moderate conference of Islam?
Sure. So it was a week before last. I was down at Portland State University, and they have a multicultural center down at Portland State University. And they also have multicultural graduation at Portland State University. They have a separate multicultural graduation at Portland State now. I know, you lose track of how many kinds of wrong it is. But their event was this Stop the Crisis event, which they had. And they had a brand of, and I've never heard a Muslim imam talk. But they had a Muslim imam talking, and he is from a branch of the Muslim community. And what they are doing is, it's called the Ahmadiyya, I think I'm pronouncing it correct, Muslim community. And they are saying a few things. They are saying we are peaceful people, peaceful jihad, but there's a couple of dangerous things that I want to point out to your listeners, that when I listen to these guys, and he was actually, all the speakers there were three main speakers. They were all fairly affable guys, okay, and I think they're well intended, but there's some dangerous things in there, and they're saying that there's a couple things that they're saying. One is it has nothing to do with religion, the terrorism that we're seeing. That's quoted several times, and maybe you'll play a clip of that. If not, DaylightDisinfectant.com, you can read it. It has nothing to do with religion. And I sincerely disagree with that. And the reason why they're saying that is they're showing videos of Timothy McVeigh. Mm-hmm. They're talking about the Tamer Tigers over and they're saying, there's all these terrorists that are out there, and it's not just the Muslims. So he asks specifically, the imam that they have up there asks specifically, not to use the word Islamic terrorist, which Obama has avoided right now. I say it right out in my stuff, because what you're seeing really is Islamic terrorism. That's the predominant form of terrorism. The guys who were over in Paris, okay, the Charlie Hebdo guys, were, these guys were Islamic terrorists who targeted Jews, and we need to be saying that. So to say that, religion has nothing to do with it, I disagree entirely, and I think it's naive to believe that, and it's naive to ignore that there are Muslims that are perpetrating these acts, and that's what they're trying to say. Everybody's doing it, so don't say Islam. But I think there are hundreds of millions of radical Muslims that are out there, and there are not hundreds of millions of radical Christians that want to kill all Muslims. I think that's just evidence just does not bear that out. So.
Absolutely. I mean, you can say that that not every Muslim is a terrorist. Obviously, that's accurate. But the vast majority, vast majority of these terrorists are radicalized Muslims. Or, the way I look at it is it's more of a fundamentalist Muslim. And I've actually for a real long time I've been disinterested with learning about the Muslim faith and trying to really understand it. And I've taken some time in the last couple of weeks to read some passages from the Hadith and the Quran and different things like that, trying to actually learn a little bit more about it. And this religion, it has its issues. I find that it does have issues. Like, for example, I believe it's in the Hadith that they're allowed to actually lie to people in the Hadith. As long as they're doing it for the cause, if they're lying for the cause. So they can pretend to be your friend until they suddenly are in a position to not be your friend, and then and have more of an ability to take over, kind of like what they're doing with the caliphate now. The situation is there's a difference in interpretations. Okay, so you have these people here, these imams, talking about how this religion has nothing to do with terrorism, and they're also making comparisons to the Crusades and whatnot. And this is their interpretation. I don't know if they're lying to us or not, because according to the Hadith, they are allowed to lie to us. But even if they aren't lying to us and they're telling us the truth, then this is their interpretation, and that's great. I hope that they are moderate. And what I believe right now is that we have a moment in history when we are witnessing a rebirth of the Islamic religion, the Muslim religion. We're actually watching them go through their reformation. Every religion. Islam is actually a pretty young religion in the grand scheme of other religions, and other religions have had the reformations, and I think that we're actually witnessing the reformation of Islam right now. We have the moderates on one side, we have the radicals on another, and one side is going to win this, and it's just a matter of who's going to stand up and say, no, that we're the ones. And I believe that this is going to have to be fought. It's not going to be something that they can win in the battlefield of ideas, because one side is literally radicalized to the point where they want to hasten the world to be set on fire. So the beliefs are just so contrarian with this. It's either going to split into two different religions, or it's going to be reformed into one, and I don't know what side's going to win. But I think that we're at a point in history when we're actually watching this take place. But anyway, Dan, I want to play a quick clip here of your video. Religion has nothing to do with it. Islamic terrorism discussed at PSU. I'll go ahead and play the clip for everybody until the bumper here. So give me 1 second to get this loaded.
There is this claim that radicalization is a Muslim problem. Some people say that radicalization is done by Muslims and exclusively by Muslims. But history doesn't necessarily paint that picture.
All right. So, what's your comments on that, Dan?
Well, I really, what he's saying there is that religion has nothing to do with it, and that there are radicals, in all religions, which I would agree that there probably are radicals that over time have perpetrated these terrible acts. But what's not happening in the world right now is there are not hundreds of millions of radical Muslims. And I point your users to Ben Shapiro's Truth Revolt blog. Go out there, he goes through the numbers on how many people believe in Sharia law that says it's okay to marry 13-year-old girls and have sex with them. Those kinds of radical ideas that have that have a negative view of the United States, that think it's okay to perpetrate acts of violence against the United States. He goes through the millions and millions of people in all of the countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya. He goes through and counts them up. And, it's not Christians that are perpetrating these acts. So to say it's every religion that's doing this right now, we are not recognizing the fact that predominantly what's going on here is you have hundreds of millions of radical Muslims out there, and people that are funding this, and people are actually executing it. So it has everything to do with religion. I couldn't disagree with this moderate form of the Muslim religion more. And that's what he's saying, is it has nothing to do with religion. That's a lie. And listen to the video. You watch the video yourselves.
There was a poll that was conducted as well, and this is what concerns me about it, is because we're told that this is just a small segment, and it is in the grand scheme of the Muslim populations in the world. But there are quite a lot of issues inside the religion, in my opinion, and this is just my personal opinion. But and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being Muslim or anything like that. I think it depends on the interpretation. If people have a more fundamentalist interpretation of the religion, I think it can become problematic, because those sayings in the Hadith and different things that I've been learning lead me to really scratch my head and wonder, who would. Let's back it up for a second, okay? Can you imagine as a Christian, okay? And I don't know what your religious belief is, Dan, but just imagine as a Christian, the Bible said, you can lie, because you're going to get caught doing some stuff that I tell you to do, and it's okay as long as you lie, I give you permission to lie. That just doesn't seem something that a supreme, being would instruct its followers to do.
If it forwards, I think it's okay for a Muslim. If it forwards the perpetuation of the caliphate, of the the Islamic State, and I think it's a very dangerous thing. And as long as that religion, even as backwards as that is, and as morally repugnant as that is to me, it's okay to lie. Have I ever lied before? Of course, everyone lies in their life, and we're all sinners, right? But is it okay to lie? No. Okay,
yeah, and they're creating the foundation right there that it is okay. That's what the Hadith is telling them, and this is not just a obscure Hadith that nobody reads. This is one of the most commonly read Hadiths in association with the Quran. So it's kind of a big deal. This is their big Hadith. So. It is creating the standard where they can just decide, okay, well, it's in furtherance of Islam, and it frustrates me, because I want to trust the moderates. I want to trust them. I want to be able to put my faith in that. But then at the same time, in the back of your head, you're like, are they lying to us? They're according to their own religion, they're allowed to lie about it. So.
And okay, well, that would be fine. It would also be fine. It's morally repugnant as I find it. It'd also be fine if they left it at their doorstep when they walked outside the door. But what you were seeing, Mac, is exactly what we saw in Germany. I lived in Germany 8 years. I saw it happen there. The Islamification of Germany, and you are seeing the Islamification of the Portland area right now. They want to be able to hire 5 Somali full-time employees for the Portland public school systems right now. Try to wrap your head around that, right? Okay, well, why aren't there 5 Italians? Or I don't know what your heritage is, okay? But why are we not hiring one Somali English teacher, sticking them all in a room, and it's sink or swim, just like it was for our parents, right? Well, my grandfather, when he came over here, learned English and put them into the regular classroom and immerse them in American culture, right? And their culture becomes a part of American culture, okay? But, we're not adapting our culture to be Somali culture, and Somalis are by far and wide predominantly Muslims, okay? Mm-hmm. So what they're saying is that we're going to adopt, it's a dual immersion program, okay, with co-integration. So what the Portland Public Schools are going to be is not only do the Somalis learn American culture, but Americans need to learn Somali culture. Kolingo, you have to learn to be good Islams as well, okay, good Muslims as well. And that's what's going down in Portland Public Schools. You are seeing the slow Islamification of the Portland area. I can give you other examples of that as well. But that's happening right here in the United States. People have to pay attention to what's going on. That they are going to start, and they're going to start teaching, just like they did in Texas, the 5 pillars of Islam. Now, I don't know if it's okay to lie thing. I really need to look that up online to see if that's a part of that. But I would bet that would be a part of what they're going to start teaching kids under the auspices of teaching history and under the auspices of social studies. They're going to start teaching the 5 pillars of Islam inside the Portland Public Schools, if they're not doing it already. I guarantee you that they're going to be doing it.
Well, it's certainly very, very scary. We have a radicalized version of Islam that is believing the fundamental interpretation of this religion, and there is some disagreement inside the religion itself. You have the moderates and then the radicals. But the radicals, we're told by President Obama, for example, that these people are radicalized because they don't have jobs or they're somehow disenfranchised, and that it has nothing to do with religion. But no, it does have to do with religion. People are being taught these things from a religious viewpoint, and what it really is that they obviously they believe that they're going to get the virgins if they become a martyr for the cause. But in addition to that, they believe that all the modernization of what's happened and the maps and all the stuff around the globe that we've carved up countries. They're bringing back the caliphate, and they believe that it is divinely written that the caliphate will be reestablished. They'll have essentially a new empire, a new Muslim empire, and it's going to spread globally. That's what they believe. This is part of their religion, and it's not because they don't have jobs that they're joining this fight. It's because this radical interpretation of the Quran and the Hadith is really fueling the fire for these people. But anyway, I have the clip here of your other video. It's during the Crusades, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. This is a quote from the Imam that's reading it. I'll go ahead and play the clip real fast.
Remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ.
Well, there's a lot more to that video when people go out and look at it, DaylightDisinfectant.com. But he goes through, and you're hearing the same rhetoric that's being, perpetrated by the White House. And, I'll give you the full quote that the Imam, at Portland State University gave. And he says, quoting Obama, he said, "When it comes to American Islam, there is only us, because millions of us, Americans, Muslims, are part of the fabric of our country." I would agree with him there, okay? Then he goes on and says, unless we get on our high horses and think that it is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people did terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Jesus Christ. And then he adds at the end, you can't be singing to Christ on Sunday and be doing all these barbaric things to human beings. Well, I will argue the Crusades, if you really look at it, and I'm not a historian, was a defensive act. And the Muslims had come as far north as Austria, okay? They were in Vienna, or the gates of Vienna anyway, okay, by the time they were turned back during the Crusades. Now, maybe one of your listeners can call in and correct me on history, but it was originally fought as a defensive war to defend predominantly Christian Europe against the Muslims. And, of course, they forced them all the way back to Jerusalem, okay, and said, hey, we're going to take Jerusalem over here. But I think history bears that out. And these things are not happening now. I can't, you know what I mean? It was not 25 Muslims that were beheaded by 25 Christians. We have to acknowledge the fact that these are radical Muslims. They are the tip of the spear, as you said earlier. Those guys who cut the heads were the tip of the spear. And behind that tip are millions of Muslims who believe that they were correct and want to force their way of society, their culture on Western civilization. And unfortunately, they are winning. They are winning in Europe, and I can give you countless examples in Europe too. They are winning in Europe, and they're coming to the United States right now. Okay, and they're here in the Willamette Valley, and we have tens of thousands of Somalians here in the Willamette Valley right now, and it's coming here. It's coming unless we protect our culture. And it's fine. What you do at home is your own business, but we should not be teaching Islam in the Portland public schools, and we should not be doing a co-integration, dual immersion program. We should be doing an immersion program for these Somali students and saying, hey, guess what? You're in America now. Here, you start to speak English, and now you're in a classroom with the rest of them, sink or swim. That's my personal opinion on that.
Well, I happen to agree with you. I think that it is incredibly important that we have immigration. I think legal immigration is incredibly important. But at the same time, I think that we need to take measures to protect our own culture, protect our, the tenets of our our rule of law, especially when you're talking in terms of Islam. They want to bring Sharia law here, which I find completely abhorrent. It makes women extremely subservient, and it has an essentially a vigilante justice theme to it that it goes not through the courts. By the way, I also I want to just mention we have a listener here, Desi. He agreed with you. Yes, the Crusades were in response to the invasion of Islam.
Hey, look at that.
He also says the destruction of cultural statues and books getting burned by Islamic terrorists is a form of ethnic cleansing. And they're actually right now doing that. They're going around and they're destroying thousands of year-old statues and burning books. I find it extremely just interesting the way that we are in this repetitive cycle of history. This is Islamo-Nazis. That's what they are. Is Islamo-Nazis. We have a rebirth of anti-Semitism, and Jews are walking around with yarmulkes that look like hair pieces so they can cover their head, practice their religion without fear of being killed. And there's video. I saw a video on the internet where this little young Muslim boy sees a Jewish man walking with his yarmulke, and he turns to his mom and he says, doesn't he know he's going to get killed? Yeah, like what is he doing here? He's egging them on. He's going to. So we're seeing the rise of anti-Semitism again. Islamo-Nazism being completely touted by the radical side of Islam. And we see the other side, the moderate side of Islam, being very, very quiet on the topic. There may be some intellectuals out there speaking, like at these conferences, but they're speaking to a left audience, a left-leaning audience, which is only hearing that Islam is good, Islam is good, Islam is good, and they're not. The left is not associating the threat that ISIS and the radicals face, because all they're hearing is these intellectuals on the moderate side saying, "Oh, it's a religion of peace. It's we're not out to hurt anybody." But again, to move on to your point, we do need to protect our culture. We need to make sure that we don't allow Sharia law to get a foothold. We don't allow other languages and cultures to be forcibly taught. Now, if you want to take it as an elective or something, that's fine. And we should, in my opinion, I don't understand why we haven't said that English is the country's language. What do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I definitely would say that. And, we're crazy not to. The rest of the world knows that they teach your kids English because English is the international language of business. And if you want your kid to be anything, you better learn how to speak English, okay? Every German kid that I knew, every German that I met could speak a little bit of English, and most of them could speak fluently, okay? So we are crazy as Americans not to have this underlying interconnection of language. But no, they're going to be teaching subjects in Somalian. It's crazy. They are going to teach classes in Somalian. I'm flabbergasted at that. And the guy who's putting it forward, Casey Jama, just in case we run out of time on today's show, the guy who did it, these are not hypothetical situations, Matt. Casey Jama fought the battle in Portland to have special Islamic hours at the Portland Public Schools. This has already happened, okay? He almost won, okay? He almost won to have women-only bathing hours with appropriate attire at Portland pools. But the city attorney fought him off, okay, and said, there's all kinds of First Amendment problems with that, okay. But it was almost done, and the number of people who agreed with him, and probably would agree with him now if I had brought it up at the meeting, we should be exercising tolerance. We should have, Islamic only hours where just women can go and bathe. That is not our American culture at a public pool, okay, here in the United States, and we have to constantly be on our guard. And we shouldn't have to be. There are something like 13 states that have passed laws that have banned Sharia, okay, from being practiced in the courts in those states. And I don't know why we don't do that in Oregon. I at least think, right now I think we have a majority in the House here in Oregon. Why aren't we at least putting that up for a vote while we're there? I will never know. There's so much to talk about today, Mac. But I would say banning Sharia in Oregon, and if you want to take it as a class in college, just like you said, Mac, I took the Bible as literature when I went to a state school. I went to a state college. I took the Bible as literature. Hey, it was an easy few credits. We had to study it anyway, So if you wanted to have the Quran as literature at the University of Lowell, where I went to school, why not? I would say that's fine. But you're not teaching that to kids at the high school level. We don't teach Christianity, and we're not going to teach the Quran either. We're not going to teach the 5 pillars of the Quran in public schools.
Absolutely.
No, I have a voice on the internet. Unless they shut down my YouTube channel as a part of net neutrality, I'm not going to go silently.
So we're going to get to that in 1 second. I want to comment. As far as there is such a thing as tolerance. We have religious tolerance, and there's a story I'm going to get to a little later about how Target is making it easier for their employees who are Muslim and not forcing them to scan and touch pork products and things like that. That they're aiding with that, and I have no problem with the company deciding to do that. And that's not Sharia law. They may be practicing a fundamental version of Islam or something, and they're giving them leeway on it. But I think that's okay. That where I have an issue is when you go from having religious tolerance to giving somebody preferential treatment. Their rights, their religious rights, suddenly become more important than the culture. And everyone else has to have special requirements imposed upon them in order not to offend these people. We don't live in Islam, an Islamic society. We don't live in Sharia law, and we shouldn't live in Sharia law. So to give us special requirements is not to offend these people, is giving them special privileges, not religious freedom. They have a freedom to leave the area if they're offended. We don't have to basically just change all of the things that we do in order to make them happy and make their religion appeased. But anyway, let's move on. We got 5 minutes here, Dan. I want you to give your opinion on what's going on with net neutrality. How do you think that's going to affect the internet, and how do you think it's going to affect you as a citizen journalist?
Well, it can't be. We don't know, because it's sort of like the bill you have to pass because you don't know what's in it. Okay, but I think what you're going to find here when it comes down to brass tacks, and if it's not in this version, it's going to be in the next version. When I was growing up, Mac, on television, the way that they did this, and you're probably too young to remember this, but on BZ, which was the big NBC channel in the Boston area with a big transmitter, after the news, there would be this 5 or 10 minute segment that no one listened to, and the television stations were forced by law to provide an opposing viewpoint for something that they had put up on the news that particular day, okay? They had to provide a space for that, okay? And I think that what you're going to see happen is that in the interest of fairness, of neutrality, okay, they are going to look and they are going to say, okay, what's the predominant thing that people are demanding over the internet, okay? And I think what you're seeing is that by far, we own this medium. Of course, the left is out there, okay? But we freaking own the internet, okay? Aside from the HuffPost, okay? CNBC and all these folks who are out there, no one is listening to that crap, okay? Unless they're listening to Kramer or something like that, okay? No one's listening to that. People are at Breitbart.com. People are out at the Blaze. People are watching Fox, okay? We own this. We own this. And since Andrew Breitbart and James O'Keefe, we have owned the internet, okay? And it has stuck, like we stick them with it every time. We repost these videos on Facebook, and the left cannot control it, and they are going to try and control it. And my belief is the way they're going to try and do that is they're going to look at the inequality in demand, and they're going to say, hey, you know what? Liberal perspective is not getting a fair shake here. We're going to need to allocate tax dollars. So what they'll do is they're going to tax it. What I understand is they're going to now tax it like a utility. Okay, they're going to run it like a utility and tax it like a utility. They'll take any of the revenues from that, and they will redistribute that to try and promote the same thing as they would do with AM radio stations. Okay, they haven't been able to get a foothold in AM radio, right? How many Rush Limbaughs do they have on AM radio? Mm-hmm. They are going to try and produce. They will try and subsidize the production of a liberal version of Breitbart.com, a clone of the Huffington Post. In the end, they will end up benefiting, and what will be marginalized will be YouTube channels and folks like us that are trying to make it on our own, and other people will be subsidized. So I think that it's bad for freedom, bad for the internet, can't be good. The internet has served us well for how long, Mack Worley? It's been invented in my career, and I'm a software engineer. Okay.
I'd have to ask Al Gore when he invented it. I don't know.
Well, I actually know when the internet was invented because I was working at MITRE, worked at the MITRE Corporation. I don't want to go down the history of it, but in 1984, when I came out of college, Mack, they had DARPANET, and we studied it, and I wrote an internetworking paper back then. Okay, and so it was invented by the United States government. It's probably like NASA inventing something, okay, and now wanting to come back and collect revenues on every solar panel, okay, that was ever used or will be used in the future, okay. That's what the government is doing right now. It's part of the DARPANET. It's a great invention. It sparked more freedom. Obama's right about that, okay. Mm-hmm. It sparked more freedom than anything, okay. So let's do this. Let's have the government take control of it. Why is this a bad idea? Let me think. Let's look at the post office, right, which nobody wants to go into. Okay, so now we're going to have ObamaNet, okay, that's regulated by the United States government, run by the United States government, taxed by the United States government. How many bureaucrats are we going to employ for this thing? I mean, I just can't imagine how many kinds of wrong this thing is going to be. And I think before it's all over with, before it gets rolled back under somebody like Reagan, it's going to get worse. But it's going to get pretty bad. I think it's going to get pretty bad, Mac. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm with you. You know, I absolutely think this is going to be a bad situation for us to be in, and I don't trust our government to take care of it, and I certainly don't trust them when they say if you like your internet, you can keep it. So I'm not a big fan of this. And anyway, you know, we're actually out of time in this segment. Dan, can you give your social media website address information one more time? And then
Max, thank you so much for having me. All you folks can find my videos out at my website, DaylightDisinfectant.com, or please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. It's youtube.com/Daylight Disinfectant. I'm Daylight Disinfectant on Facebook. You can find all the videos there. And you can tweet to me. Please tweet to me at Daylight Dis. Follow me there. Subscribe at YouTube. Thanks, Mac, for having me on again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. And I appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Mac. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take it easy. All right, guys. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break. And when we get back, we're going to be joined by Jessica McGuire. She's a local activist who's been working out in Spokane, Washington, to fight the forced vaccination programs that are being pushed upon the people. So I'm going to bring her on, and she's also going to have her friend that's also working with her, and I believe her friend's name is, wait for it, Nancy Babcock. So they're both with the Vaccine Freedom for Washington organization, and it's going to be really good to have them both on the program here. So anyway, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to have them on the line. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
All right, we're back. When we last left, we had citizen journalist Dan Sandini on the line. He was discussing net neutrality, and he was talking about a lot of the videos that he's covered. We talked about Islam pretty in depth. We didn't even intend to do that, but hey, that was a great conversation. I really, really like Dan. I hope you guys do too. This is actually like the fourth or fifth time he's been on the show. Every time it's just so great to have him on. I love to have his opinion here, and sometimes we disagree, and it makes for a great conversation. Anyway, you guys should check him out, DaylightDisinfectant.com, or you can go to his YouTube channel, and please subscribe to that, because he does a heck of a lot of good work, and he's exposing the left, some of their craziness, the progressives that are out there just speaking hate, racism, feminazism, Islamo-Nazism, so much stuff that's out there that he's exposing. I just have to give him nothing but kudos. And again, that's youtube.com/Daylight Disinfectant, or you can follow him on Twitter at Daylight Dis. And like I said, lots of great stuff. Please subscribe and follow him on his social media. Anyway, at this point, we're joined by two of these individuals from the Vaccine Freedom for Washington. We're joined by Jessica McGuire and Nancy Babcock. Let me unmute Skype here and see if they can hear us. Hey, are you guys there?
We're here. We're here.
Okay, great. All right, so let's start out with Jessica. Jessica, can you tell us, first of all, what your organization is and what you guys are trying to accomplish here?
Well, thanks for having us on tonight. We really appreciate it. And, basically we are a bunch of parents here in Washington, and we have just gathered up together out of concern and frustration in regards to HB 2009. And we want it to be stopped before it gets going, before it gets implemented, before it becomes law. So we've all band together, and again, we're just a bunch of parents, a bunch of concerned citizens that see absolutely no fruit in HB 2009 becoming part of our state's laws.
I see. So as far as HB 2009, can you describe what that measure will actually do?
Yeah, HB 2009, its whole purpose is to remove philosophical and personal exemption options here for the state of Washington. It all came from the concern with the quote-unquote, and I use this term loosely, of an outbreak, of an epidemic of measles that came from the Southern California area, Disneyland area. And so about 28 representatives actually sponsored this bill here in Washington, and they want to remove the personal and philosophical exemptions for children, definitely for public school, and we're still trying to figure out the exact verbiage of the bill and how it would affect private school, and even homeschool students. Those students that could be using private or public school, extracurricular activities. I was actually on the phone with a gentleman out at one of the legislature info lines out in Olympia last week, and he advised me that this would also impact homeschooling students if they were using any publicly funded or private funded extracurricular activities.
I see. So Nancy, as far as the stuff that you guys are doing, I understand that you guys just had a rally that was being held in Spokane. Is that correct?
We have a rally coming up tomorrow evening. We had a town hall meeting last week that was very well attended, considering that we only gave folks less than, I think, about 48 hours notice. And we had a nice turnout. We had 3 local politicians show up. And there's a lot of momentum behind us. I don't think people realize how significant this is. Those of us that understand it are very passionate about making sure that we have the right to make decisions for our children. But that's what it comes down to, is government interference with our decision-making for our kids. And we want to just be able to say, no, I don't think we really want to inject porcine cells or monkey kidney cells or formaldehyde or aluminum salts into our children. And we should be able to say no if we don't feel that it's right.
Absolutely. So, and just to clarify, both of you, you aren't anti-vaccines in general. You're just anti-vaccines that you have decided there's stuff in it that you don't want. You've weighed cost-benefit analysis. You don't want to, like, outlaw vaccines, right? You want people to be able to choose whether or not they want to do this, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're not against vaccines. And to be totally honest, we really try to avoid right now the whole efficacy subject because that's not what this is about. Our concern is the parents' rights are being removed, freedoms are being removed, and we should all have the option to care for not just our family, but each family member on a separate basis of what their, do they have different diseases, conditions, concerns already, and having the right to have that conversation with our doctor and not have the government in the room with us. Like, that shouldn't be dictating any of it. And so it's not really an anti-vaccine or pro-vaccine, subject, in our opinion. We both have our own convictions on the subject, but that's separate right now, completely separate. It was pretty exciting at our town hall the other night, last Saturday night. We had doctors there, we had nurses, we had parents that not only themselves were vaccinated, but their children were vaccinated, and this impacts parents that maybe they do what's called like a delayed schedule, or they kind of, maybe they do most of the vaccines, but not all of them. Under this bill, under this law they're trying to get through, you won't have a choice. It's going to be one size fits all, period.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's incredibly important. I mean, if you want to be able to take vaccines, you have every right. And the government doesn't have a right, in my opinion. And I don't think this is just my opinion. I think this is fact. You have a right to choose what goes in and out of your body. You can decide if you want to take a medicine. You can decide to opt out. The government has absolutely no right and obligation, for that matter, to tell you what to put into your body. And I don't trust the government to make those kind of decisions. I think that those kind of decisions need to be left at the lowest level, and that level is obviously the individuals that it affects. And who is going to make the cost-benefit analysis better than people, that it actually is affecting, like the parents, the children, individuals. I think informed consent of medical procedures is important, and I totally disagree with forced medical procedures being put upon somebody against their will. That's just abhorrent. So as far as what I want to know here is who is supporting these measures in Spokane and who is backing you guys up against it. That way our listeners can find out who they can contact. Number one, it's important to contact the senators or representatives that are in support of your guys' attempt to keep this an individual choice. We need to send those individuals, those congressmen and women, we need to let them know, hey, keep backing us on this. You guys are doing a great job. We support you for supporting us. And then in addition, we need to know who is, the ones that are trying to come after our liberty, our freedoms of choice, and let them know that we're not going to tolerate it. So do you know who is on what side?
I have a list going of the folks in the legislature who have opposed it and who are supporting it. And at this point, it's a growing list. But at the moment, this is going through the Rules Committee. That is where it sits right now. And the members of the Rules Committee will vote whether or not it will make it to the House floor. And then if it makes it to the House floor, then every member of the House, there are 98 members, they will vote on this. And so I would just urge people to contact the Rules Committee members, and they are Frank Chopp, Justin Farrell, Larry Haller, Mark Harmsworth, Paul Harris, Joel Kretz, Dan Christensen, Christine Litton, Joan McBride, Jim Moeller, Tina Orwell, Eric Pettigrew, Chris Reichdahl, Cindy Rue, Shelley Short, Larry Springer, Melanie Stombaugh, Pat Sullivan, Gail Tarleton, Kevin Vandeweghe, J.T. Wilcox, Jesse Young, and Hans Ziegler. And these can be found on the ledge.law.gov. If you look under the House committees, you'll find the Rules Committee. And some of them are opposed to it. Some of them are for it. Some would like to see it changed, and then they will bring it back and vote for it. But as you said, Mack, this is really an issue of us being able to make decisions for our families. There are no tests and there are no real conditions that you can have as an individual and be exempted from vaccines on a medical basis until you have a reaction to a vaccine. And then after that, possibly, and not always, would you be medically exempted from having that. So there are some people that have certain genetic disorders. They are not recognized as disorders that could lead you to a vaccine injury, but there's a lot of data surrounding it. And so those of us that choose not to vaccinate do it with education behind us. We've spent a lot of time learning on the topic. And again, we just feel we shouldn't have to be religiously opposed or have a medical exemption to say, no, thank you. We don't really want that for our child. And that's what this issue is all about.
Absolutely. It shouldn't come down to, a religious reason. This is a choice. You obviously have a choice of what goes into your body. And, to kind of go forward onto this a little bit, because I've talked about this in the past as far as the right to decide whether or not to take vaccinations. If they're talking about in terms of like children in order to get into a public school, this is not a right that the government has. When you're talking about the public school, that is obviously a use of the government. The government is in charge of those schools, so I don't think that the government has the right to do this. Now, if this was a private school that mandated their kids that were enrolled in there to have vaccinations, that's a private school. I think they have every right to do that, and just like everybody has a right not to attend that school if they wish. But
right.
I don't think the public schools have that right, because it's ran by the government, the state, and that the state doesn't have the authority delegated to them by the people from the Constitution. So I'm with you. I hope you guys succeed. And one more time, can you give your website, social media address, all that stuff for Vaccine Freedom for Washington?
Yeah, right now we have Vaccine Freedom for Washington. It's a Facebook page, and if you go there, it's pinned up at the upper right-hand corner, the information for the rally tomorrow that's going to be down at City Hall in Spokane from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And that's what we have organized right now. This whole thing has been such a whirlwind. So things are moving really quickly on the left side.
We will have things. Sorry, Jessica, I was just going to mention that we will have a website up and hopefully running by tomorrow called informedchoicewa.com, and we'll have more information on there as well, but it's not quite up and running yet. Sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't want to put the website out there until we were totally ready, but great. We're good to go tomorrow, so that'll be great. And I would say just keep on Facebook and keep a lookout for what we've got planned, and we're getting things together quickly because we really don't want to see this get any further. We do believe that parents should have the right. I mean, if parents have the right to abort their children in this country, honestly, they should have the right to decide what goes into their children's bodies once they're in their arms.
I don't think this is a left-right issue. I think this is one that crosses that boundary of politics. This is, because even the left, they care about their children. Is hard to believe that is that the left are human beings and they care about their children. They do. We have common ground here, and the argument that the left makes about it's my body, I have a right to do with what my body. It's the freedom of choice. The pro-choice movement. Let's apply that to this. Use their own argument. All right, it is a freedom of choice. You have a right to do with what your body what you want. So let's go ahead and just agree that that what you put into your body and what is decided, that goes into your medicine and things like that. All that you should have informed consent as a prerequisite for it to even happen. I think that is so important, and I support you guys 100%. Do me a favor, Jessica and Nancy, please feel free to send me any information you guys got, website, all your stuff, and I'll post it all over my social media so people can go and like your stuff, okay?
Great, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
All right, well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on, and it was a real pleasure to have you on. Definitely stay in touch and let me know if you guys have anything else going on.
Well,
Sure,
have
well,
a great
thank
night.
you.
All righty, well, take care, y'all. Alrighty, so at this point, guys, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to dive in a little bit further into some of these pieces I have. I want to start out with net neutrality, but before we do that, I actually I want to read an article here specifically relating to this issue with a Spokane official talking about these anti-vaccination or forcible vaccinations in this HB 2009. So anyway, we'll be back and we're going to talk about that some more, so don't go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
Hey, Mac Pack, we're back. So, if you want to join today's conversation, you can do so in a lot of ways, and we're going to list them off right now. First and foremost, if you're just joining the podcast, my name is Mack Worley III, and this is On The Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. You can check us out at OnTheMoveShow.com, YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe there. We have a lot of original content on there as well. You can contact us and get a hold of the show in a number of ways. Those ways are, of course, calling us at 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. Let your voice be heard. Call in. We'll put you on the air. You and I can, chew the fat a little bit and talk about whatever's on your mind. Additionally, you can also email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. We'll read your email live on the air, and you can also tweet us at onthemoveshow.com, at OnTheMoveShow, and get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can send us a message on there, and we'll read it on the air. So anyway, let's go forward. Let's talk about net neutrality. Let's really dive into this subject here, and we're going to do that, and of course, in the Mac Attack segment. So, without further ado, here we go.
It's time for the Mac Attack!
All right, this is a segment of the show where I talk about outrageous events in the news. So, like I said, if you want to join the conversation, give us a call, 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. Or you can email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. And before we move into this here, I have an article that I want to read. I know I'm bouncing around here. I keep doing that. But there is a Spokane City Councilman. This is an article from rawstory.com, written by Tom Bogiani, I believe is the name of the individual there. Anyway, a Spokane City Council member already under fire for his anti-vaccination views rallied supporters who are opposed to a state bill that would eliminate the personal reasons exemption for childhood vaccinations, telling the group this is a war, reports KREM. On Saturday, Councilman Mike Fagan decried HB 2009, a bill under consideration by a Washington legislator that would eliminate a parent's right to exempt their child from vaccinations for personal reasons. Under the proposed change to Washington's law, the bill would still allow for medical and religious reasons as far as exemptions. Anyway, speaking at a town hall, Fagan said, "Can you imagine a world where we would have to show our shot records to get on an airplane? That's coming next." Fagan is already facing pressure from the Spokane City Council, which wants him to step down from his position on the Spokane Regional Board of Health over his anti-vaccination views. He made his opinion on this topic well known on his Facebook page. All right, so basically, from what I'm hearing about this, Raw Story appears to have a forcible vaccination stance, and they're trying to make this guy look bad and discredit him. I don't know Mike Fagan. I have no idea, but he's opposed to HB 2009, which I am, so more power to him as far as I'm concerned. And this is a common thing you're going to hear. You're going to hear people say that, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer. You're an anti-vaxxer because you don't want the government to forcibly inject you or your children with chemicals that you have either no knowledge of what they'll do and what's in them, or you have knowledge and you've decided that you don't want to do it. So either way, it's a negative thing. The government's putting something in your body and you have no idea what it does or what's in it, or you've decided that you don't want to put yourself at risk. You've made that risk calculation in your head. Okay, here's the odds of me getting this disease. Here's the side effects of these diseases, of this vaccination, and here are the likelihood of me having some kind of problem or some kind of side effect from this disease. In a lot of cases, the side effects are a bigger probability than you getting the disease yourself. So anyway, the point is that they're trying to call this an anti-science viewpoint, which is not anti-science. It's not even anti-vaccinations. It's anti-forcible medical procedures, injecting the government, injecting something into your body against your will, or your children's body against your will. You as a parent, you have an absolute right to say no. And, I support anybody who stands against HB 2009. And again, I don't know anything about Councilman Mike Fagan, but I'd be happy to have him on the show if he's out there and he's listening. I'd love to have him on. We could talk about it. Anyway, I just wanted to read that for a moment. Now let's move on to net neutrality. This is the topic. This is the big thing that's going on right now. You all need to be aware of it. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so first of all, what is the government doing? The FCC. Now, this is not Congress. This is the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. Now, what they're doing is they are essentially nationalizing the Internet as a public utility. And what I mean by nationalize it, they're giving the control to the government, okay? They're giving this control to the government, all under the guise that it's to make the Internet more neutral and more safe and friendly. Everyone's going to have a voice on the Internet. Let me ask you. First of all, we're really going to dive into this here, and now we're going to talk a lot about all the problems that is wrong with this thing, and there's a lot of them. But first things first, let me ask you a question: is the Internet broken? I don't think so. I think the Internet's working just fine. Hold on, let me just double check. Yeah, it seems. Oh, yeah, it's working. Seems to be working fine. You guys hear me loud and clear? I think the Internet is working. So we're being told that it's broken. It's got this problem. It's not neutral. Oh, it's not fair. There's so many problems with the Internet. It's not free. You're not really free on the Internet. So let's get the government involved, and they're gonna make it free. They're gonna be the ones there to save the day, right? just like they did with Obamacare. You know, the Affordable Health Care Act, it's doubled and tripled our health care premiums. The uninsured rate right now is at an all-time high. Uninsured people are at an all-time high right now. It didn't do anything to help us. So, again, we were told that this is a problem when I believe the numbers in the polls were that 75% of the people or more, perhaps it was even more, I think it was much larger than that now that I think about it, were happy with the health care that they had. And yet we decided to change it. We created a problem. Now people lost their health care insurance policies. You know, President Obama told the biggest lie of the century. If you like your health care, you can keep it, which is a lie. If you like your doctor, you can keep it, which is a lie. You know, a lot of people lost their coverage because their program was considered a junk policy and they weren't considered grandfathered in if one freaking thing had to change, and every policy had to change because for some reason, old people need to have contraception as part of their policies. You know, you need to have an abortion plan in part of your policy. You has to have that stuff covered. You know, you need to have all these other amenities added to your bill for fluff, and it costs you a fortune now to pay for all the stuff that you don't need. You know, even in the bronze package, you have all this crap that you don't need. That's why the premiums have doubled and tripled. It costs so much money. People lost their health insurance. Their pre-existing conditions weren't covered unless they were in an open enrollment period. Some people tried to enroll. They thought they did. They weren't enrolled. This is all a problem that the government created. None of this would have happened if the government hadn't stepped in and took over one-third of our economy. They created a problem out of nothing where there was no problem. People were happy. Yeah, it wasn't a perfect system, but it definitely was better than what we have now. Definitely was better than what we have now. The internet is the last beacon of hope. The last beacon of freedom that we have. Our voices are heard. And I want to specifically talk here for a second, okay? There is a reason why we, in the conservative libertarian community, why we hold a foothold in social media, radio, we do it on the internet. We hold an essential monopoly. The left, they don't get ratings. Just look at MSNB communists over there. They are not getting ratings. Nobody's watching these shows because it's not good, for one. It's not even entertaining. Number two, it's inflammatory crap. It's not educational. It caters to the uninformed audience. It's emotional, and people see through it. People see through the propaganda, and that is what it is. It's propaganda. And people are dumb. I mean, some people are dumb, and I feel like that a lot of times. I feel like, oh, people are so stupid. That's how I've been feeling really recently here. But, you know, people aren't dumb in terms of the stuff that they consume. You know, people understand. You know, especially if you're a news watching crowd. If somebody's a news watching crowd, they're typically going to be, you know, some of the more informed people. So what you'll catch on MSNBC is people who are somehow the ignorant group or the complete and total leftist of the leftists that are watching MSNBC communist, and they're still hooked in this because that's their progressive ideology. This is what they believe. They believe the propaganda. They buy into it. And then you have the uninformed people who sporadically do it. But there's not very many of those two groups. There's not very many. That's why MSNBC's falling short on their numbers and shows are getting canceled and there's all sorts of problems over there. I don't believe this network's going to be around very long. But to speak about why we hold this monopoly, conservatives, libertarians, why do we hold the monopoly? Number one, we're not necessarily, I guess you could call it propaganda. It's liberty propaganda is what it is. But we're not trying to preach to a stupid audience. I know you out there are probably more informed than I am on a lot of issues. Very likely. I get corrected all the time. And by the way, for your corrections, I appreciate it. You guys are literally contributors to the show when you correct me. So thank you. But on to that also, there is not an audience out there for the progressive ideology. It's just not that big. It's not that much. And as Dan was talking about, you know, they're going to have to compensate, and they're going to use because it's going to be funded as a public utility, just like gas, net neutrality, the internet. It will become a public utility, just like gas, just like water, just like the electric company. It's going to be a public utility. You're going to have to pay taxes. All right, even if you don't even use the internet, you're going to end up having to pay taxes most likely. But again, we don't know because we can't see what the FCC voted on. It's over 300 pages, and it was helped. I'm sorry, I'm getting angry here. Big mega corporations like Google and Verizon and these other companies that have internet, and they're working to be ISPs. You know, by the way, Google's trying to become an ISP now, and Comcast, of course, Time Warner. These companies, they had a hand in writing this. They were allowed to see it. We weren't allowed to see what they were voting on, but they were allowed to see it because they wrote it. And I want you to really think about when the government is having taxpayer money fund the internet. And we're going to get into some of the funding, the way it's funded now in a moment. But look at the actual way that it could be funded, okay? As Dan was alluding to, you know, there's a discrepancy between right and left media. The right has a foothold. You know, the libertarian and conservative viewpoints have the audience. We are dominating the internet. We are dominating the radio. And the left, it's really not fair. And I'm fine with it not being fair because if it's not fair. The world is not fair. Capitalism, that's what it is. It's capitalist. Survival of the fittest. You have the best product. You provide the best services. You will be a success in the world. And that is what this is. This is all capitalism. You're listening to the show because out of the marketplace of ideas, you've decided to latch onto this one. Maybe you won't stick around. Maybe you'll disagree with me and we'll part ways, and maybe you'll go somewhere else. I don't know. But right now, if you're listening to this program, the marketplace of ideas, I have provided a service, maybe some entertainment, maybe something. I don't know what it is about this show. Maybe you just like the sweet, sultry sound of my voice. But something about it has lured you here. You've come here. So at some point in the marketplace of ideas, I have won. I won you, and thank you for listening to this program, by the way. But it's not fair. The world isn't fair, and the internet shouldn't be fair. And in terms of media, let's talk again. How is the left getting a little boost by the government? Because Dan was saying that the government may try to make things fair and provide more money to left-leaning outlets. You know, maybe they're getting a stipend from the government, and the right-leaning outlets aren't getting that because they already have too big of an advantage in the marketplace of ideas. So now the left needs some help. So the government gives them a stipend, and it's taxpayer funded. What is happening with that already? When I think about radio, okay, when I'm thinking about programs that are already left-leaning and oriented on the radio, I can't think of very many. I can't think of one leftist host that I've heard of. Maybe there are. I'm sure there's lefties on the radio somewhere around the nation. I'm sure there are. But the biggest one I can think of is NPR. All right, this is National Public Radio. So this is actually, you know, they get a lot of their money from members. They receive from like on-air pledge drives, corporate underwriting, and wait for it, state and local governments, education institutions, and federally funded corporations for public broadcasting. So with that in mind, they are getting subsidized. The left is getting subsidized. NPR wouldn't exist if it was just up for your listeners. The amount of money that is in this kind of entity, providing the kind of news that they're providing. I've listened to NPR. I used to listen to it all the time as a counterweight to the real news that's going on. I wanted to hear what the left was saying. So, you know, the programs, okay, they're all right, but the right holds the monopoly. The right holds a monopoly. And NPR wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the federal government. This is being subsidized. The left is being subsidized on radio because it's just not fair. It's not fair that the right has so much and the left has so little. So, excuse me. Now, let's talk about how the net is right now. All right, and the argument for net neutrality is that it's going to make it fair. It's going to keep these big conglomerate companies from choking down the bandwidth and only giving fast internet speed to people like these other corporations that can do it, like as it is right now. All right, what they're doing right now is companies like Netflix, for example, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys know, but I believe that if I'm remembering correctly, Netflix is 30%. They use 30% of the internet's bandwidth. So the speed that the internet runs, 30% of that is being taken up by Netflix. Of course, I mean, it's got these huge file sizes, and they're streaming. It's not like it used to be back in the day. If you ever tried to download a big file back in the day, you would have to, you download it, it'd take you an hour or two, maybe even all day to download a file the size of a movie. And then you could play it once it was physically downloaded on your computer. But we're not talking about that kind of technology. We're talking about streaming, instant, HD quality. Pretty soon it's going to be 4K, and after that it's going to be 8K movies. So imagine how much Netflix is expanding. And the quality of Netflix has certainly gotten a lot better. As somebody who has used Netflix in the past, I started when it was really new, and the streaming quality wasn't that great. It used to have to buffer. Now, I'm not a Netflix user now, but I would imagine it's gotten better. I remember my last few days of using it. It was it was really good. It was fast. I didn't have any buffering. It was quick, and that's because Netflix pays billions, with a B, billions of dollars a year to these ISPs, these internet service providers like Comcast. They pay billions of dollars, and what that money does is, number one, it allocates this bandwidth speed, this certain amount of speed it allocates to Netflix. So they know that they're going to have the fastest streaming internet, movie site or whatever on the internet. They know that they're going to be able to have no buffering on their videos. It's going to be great for them. All right, of course. And they want that kind of service. They should pay for it. And what that money also does is they are paying Comcast to upgrade their service. So Comcast and other internet service providers take this money and they pump it into their company to make their stuff faster and more robust, and make the internet bigger and faster for everybody. Okay, but again, a lot of this tech is being reserved for the people who are paying it, which is Netflix, and they should. Netflix should pay to have their internet upgraded, their bandwidth upgraded. They're the ones that are paying for it. They should get it. That's where their money's going. Now, of course, Netflix doesn't want to pay this money. Obviously, they don't want to pay billions of dollars to upgrade their service from these internet service providers. It would behoove them. It would be great for their business if suddenly this whole internet thing became nationalized and it became a public utility, and now everyone pays their fair share. It's redistribution of wealth, people. That's what it is. It's not you looking out for the little guy. Net neutrality is looking out for the corporations. Number one, they wrote the frickin' bill. They helped write it. Number two, the FCC, hold on a second. I don't remember electing anyone in the FCC. And a matter of fact, they're actually presidentially appointed. And just so happens that all three of the five people sitting on the FCC commission, three of them were Democrats, two of them were Republicans, and the Democrats just so happened to vote along party line. Big surprise. And they passed this bill that we weren't allowed to see. Who knows what the hell's in it? We don't. Maybe we will soon. I don't know. But these mega corporations do know because they helped write it. It would be one thing if this came from Congress, because those are our elected representatives. We voted to get them in. We can vote to get them out. But we have no say in what the FCC does. The FCC, we can't vote them out. Short of an act of Congress, act of impeachment, I don't know how we get those guys out of there. But this kind of vast regulation door that's being opened here is dangerous. And it's dangerous, number one, because it can totally change the face of the internet. Do not believe the lie. If you like your internet, you can keep it. We heard that with Obamacare. If you like your health care, you can keep it. It's not true. It is not true. But secondly, it's precedent. It is even if everything in it is innocuous and it's all calm and there's nothing to worry about. No words, no verbiage or anything that's going to set off any red alarms or something with us thinking that the government's going to suddenly get tyrannical. Even if there's nothing there, it creates a precedent for the FCC and the government to have control and do what they want with the internet, and more regulation, more. And again, if it's by the FCC, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't vote them out of office. They're in there. They're presidentially appointed, just like the Supreme Court. There's nothing we can do. So it's very concerning. The precedent is very concerning. But anyway, we're going to come back a little bit more into this here, and I'm looking at the clock. It's 6:43. Go ahead and just count on us doing an overdrive hour here, guys, because we are sitting on a ton of news after being gone for a week. So anyway, we'll be right back after this messages. Don't go anywhere.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
All right, MacPack, we're back. So you can tell I'm fired up. I've kind of been on a tizzy here. So, with that said, we're talking about net neutrality, and if you guys want to join the conversation, the number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625, or you can email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. I'll read your message live on the air. And I'm looking at some of the threads we have out there on Facebook. They're talking about, for example, Desi here. He says, one of the things that is most scary about this is the possible loss of non-mainstream media. And he also says, Mac, you're not the only one. I've been fired up about it since yesterday morning. And I'm with you, brother. I feel you, because this stuff is frustrating. And we haven't even really gotten too far into it, honestly. So, all right, let's talk about the reasons why the precedent for the government takeover of the internet is a bad thing. All right, first of all, this is not a free market solution. All right, this is a government solution, and as we all know, that the government doesn't create answers to problems; they create problems so that they can be the answer, and that's not what they're going to be. They will never be your beacon of hope. They will never reach out and save you from some horrible tragedy. In fact, they will likely be the cause of the horrible tragedy in your life. It is extremely unlikely that the government will ever be the solution, the way to go to fix the problem. There's always a better way to empower the people, to fix the problem, to let the free market take hold. There will always be a better way to go about it. There always will be. And even if there isn't, you can guarantee that the way that the government goes will be guaranteed to be filled with fraud, waste, and abuse. And it's really just sickening when you think about it, how much money we waste. How much money is just wasted because the government is inept, the government is slow, which is a good thing. Checks and balances. We need a slow government. And I want to read an article here, and I'm going to, throughout this article, I'm going to comment on the stuff this individual said, and I'm going to read this whole article. It is very compelling. I really have to talk about it. So anyway, this was written by Joshua Steimel, I believe, and this is on Forbes.com. The article is titled, "Am I the Only Techie Against Net Neutrality?" And this is a decently sized article, but it's going to be worth it. So I'll try not to make it so dry. If you know how it is when people are reading something. So I'll try to comment in between, and we'll talk about it here. So anyway, he says, if you watch the news, it seems just about everybody is in favor of net neutrality legislation. And again, he's talking about legislation. What we got was not even legislation. That was regulation from the FCC. So I digress. Anyway, he goes on. Despite being a tech-addicted entrepreneur, I am not. He's referring to in favor of net neutrality. No, I am not a paid shill for the cable industry. I am no fan of Comcast or any other ISP I've ever had the, quote, pleasure of dealing with. I am skeptical of large corporations generally and dislike the fact that in this debate I appear to be on their side. While I have no problem with net neutrality as a principle or concept, I have serious concerns about net neutrality as legislation or public policy. And since a false dichotomy is being perpetrated by the media in regards to this matter, I feel an obligation to put forth a third point of view. In taking this stand, I realize I may be the only techie, if I can aspire to that label, to oppose net neutrality, and that I open myself up to accusations of killing the dreams of young entrepreneurs, wrecking free speech, and destroying the internet. Nevertheless, here are 3 reasons I am against net neutrality legislation. I want more competition. Proponents of net neutrality say the telecoms have too much power. I agree. Everyone seems to agree that monopolies are bad and competition is good, and just like you, I would like to see more competition. But if monopolies are bad, why should we trust the U.S. government, the largest, most powerful monopoly in the world? We're talking about the same organization that spent an amount equal to Facebook's first 6 years of operating costs to build a healthcare website that doesn't work. The same organization that can't keep the country's bridges from falling down. And the same organizations that spend 320 times what private industry spends to send a rocket into space. Think of an industry that has major problems. Public schools? Healthcare? How about higher education student loans, housing, banking, physical infrastructure, immigration, the space program, the military, the police, or the post office? What do all these industries and/or organizations have in common? They're all heavily regulated or controlled by the government. On the other hand, we see where the deregulation has occurred, innovation has bloomed, such as with telephone services. Now, this is me, Mack Worley, talking to you guys. I want to talk about this for a moment. You remember back when Ma Bell would charge you a ridiculous amount of money per minute to make a long-distance call. If you were calling from the East Coast to the West Coast, it was a couple of bucks per minute. And it cost a ridiculous amount. Well, where we have seen deregulation, as he is talking about, innovation has in fact bloomed. Look at the way that our cell phones work now. We are able to make long-distance calls, and it's a thing of the past. Roaming charges are a thing of the past as technology has become more deregulated and advanced to the point where it was operating above the level of what the government could control. We had seen major advancements. And the telephone services are just a perfect example of that. Anyway, to carry on with the article, do you think we'd all be walking around with smartphones today if the government still ran the phone system? The U.S. government has shown time after time, time after time, that it is ineffective at managing much of anything. This is by design. The founders intentionally created a government that was slow, inefficient, and plagued by gridlock because they knew the greatest danger to individual freedom came from a government that could move too quickly. Too quickly for the people to react in time to protect themselves. If we value our freedom, we need government to be slow. If government is slow, we should try to rely sorry, I read that wrong. If the government is slow, we shouldn't rely on it to provide us with products and services we want in a timely manner at a high level of quality. The telecoms may be bad, but everything that makes them bad is what the government is by definition. Can we put bad or worse together and end up with better? I don't like how much power the telecoms have, but the reason they're big and powerful isn't because there's a lack of governmental regulation, but because of it. Government regulations are written by large corporate interests which collude with officials in the government. This is crony capitalism. This is what we're talking. This is me again, Mack, talking here. It's not the article. This is crony capitalism, the collusion between corporations and government. And this is what we are seeing with net neutrality. This is not a stick it to the man. We're not sticking it to the company, and Uncle Sam is coming in and nannying us and taking good, sweet care of us because they really care about us. They care about our internet freedom. No, they're colluding with big business. I will tell you who will benefit out of this. It's not going to be you and me. Certainly not going to be you and me. It's going to be the big corporations like Netflix, the big corporations like Comcast, and the government. The government's getting a foothold in the internet, and these companies are establishing their monopolies, and it's all going to be funded through taxpayer dollars. I mean, that is what it is, plain and simple. These monopolies are going to be locked in by the government. The government will pick the winners and choosers. And back to the article here. The image of a government being full of people on a mission to protect the little guy from predatory corporate behemoths is an illusion fostered by politicians and corporate interests alike. Many, if not most, government regulations are the product of crony capitalism designed to prevent small entrepreneurs from becoming the real threats to large corporations. And this is my opinion again. They are, in fact, kicking out the ladder of success. The large corporations, they have made it, and their biggest threat is innovative small entrepreneurs that will put them out of business because their services are inferior, their customer service is inferior, or their prices are too high. The small entrepreneurs will find a way to do it better, more affordable, more reliable, and the technology will eventually get there, and they will figure it out. What these large corporations are doing is putting the small guy in check, making it sure that they can never be a threat to them. And essentially, in the ISP game, they will never be a threat, and that is because it's completely regulated by the government. The government has made it impossible for a small business to start an ISP. It's impossible. You can't get into the ISP business. You just can't. It's too highly regulated. So they are eliminating choice. They're eliminating the freedom of choice that you have in the market. And these are not free market solutions. These are big government solutions. These are monopolist solutions. And people talk about, oh, you're just a big fan of corporatism when you're for capitalism and the free market. No, we're not for that. And being a fan of the free market, being a capitalist, that doesn't mean you're a big business fan. I'm not a big business fan. And I don't believe that monopolies in a truly free market could exist. I don't believe, because the little guys will always find a way to catch these large corporations when they're sleeping, find a way that they're not providing the best customer service or service, period, and they will mooch off their customers, and eventually, these could become a total threat and come out with a much superior product and put these big conglomerates out of business. But it won't happen with the government collusion. The government protects them. They become the safety net for these large corporations. That's why Comcast can treat their customers like crap. That's why they can provide inferior service to us. And I happen to be a Comcast customer, and I can't stand them. I hate Comcast. It's the worst internet service I've ever had. As those of you who listen to the show, you know how much problems we've had continually, week after week, with this, with the internet here. It's dropped us all the time. So anyway, back to the article. If net neutrality comes to pass, how can we trust it will not be written in a way that will make it harder for new companies to offer internet services? If anything, we're likely to end up with an even more emboldened large telecoms than before. Of course, at this point, the politicians will tell us if they hadn't stepped in, things would be even worse. You know, they create the problem, and then they tell us that they fixed it. You know, but the problem is worse. Just like Obamacare. Oh yeah, we're doing so great. Our healthcare system is so much better than it was before. But you know, it's pretty much trashed. You've pretty much annihilated 1/3 of the economy and screwed over millions of Americans who now don't have health insurance, and all the people who had to pay their penalty for not having health care at the end of the year. Is just one more big, thumb or a middle finger to everybody who can't afford health insurance in the first place. Now you get taxed and penalized on your income tax. Way to go. Thanks, Obama. You've really helped us. Anyway, if telecoms are forced to compete in a truly free market, Comcast and Time Warner won't exist 10 years from now. They'll be replaced by options that give us better service at a lower price. Some of these new options may depend on being able to take advantage of the very freedom to charge more for certain types of different internet traffic that net neutrality actually seeks to eliminate. If we want to break up large telecoms through increased competition, we need to eliminate regulations that act as barriers to entry in the space rather than create more of them. Anyway, we're going to carry on more with this article in the Overdrive Hour. We got a whole lot of news left to cover. And anyway, I just want to say thanks to all of you that are listening on the Haywire Gulch Network. We're simulcasting live on haywiregulch.com every Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 to 10 Eastern Standard Time. Sorry, I'm horrible with that. And I just want to give you guys a heads up. If you are listening on the Haywire Gulch Network, you can stay tuned for Patriot News. They're coming up next. And for those of you who want to continue listening on the other side of this break, we're going to be going on with the Overdrive Hour. And you're going to be able to listen to that on OnTheMoveShow.com directly on our web player. So you can tune in there. Anyway, at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. And we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
Hey, MacPack. If you're listening right now, you're listening on OnTheMoveShow.com or on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow, and you are participating in our Overdrive Hour. It's the hour that we have extra. So if we have a day like today where we have a whole bunch of news that we're sitting on and we want to talk, we got plenty of time to do it, and that's what we're doing in this next hour here. We may not use the whole hour, but we might. I don't know. I'll let you guys know. But anyway, we were talking about net neutrality. We were reading the article by Joshua Steimel, and he was talking about how he felt that, and this is an older article, just so you know. This is from 2014. He was talking about how he felt that he was the only techie that was against net neutrality. And the last topic that he said, he had 3 reasons why he was against net neutrality legislation. The first one, he wants more competition in the marketplace. In the marketplace of ideas, essentially, let's boil down his points here. He was talking about how government involved in the process actually creates less competition, and if the telecoms are forced to compete in a truly free market, Comcast and Time Warner wouldn't even exist 10 years from now. They'd be replaced by better options and services at lower prices. And he says that if we want to truly break up the large telecom companies through increased competition, we need to eliminate regulations that act as barriers to entry in the space rather than create more to them. So anyway, that was his last topic. He's got 2 more here. The next reason he was against it is he wants more privacy. Free speech cannot exist without privacy, he says, and the U.S. government has been shown to be untrustworthy of guarding the privacy of its citizens. I would say that is an understatement. This is me personally talking again. That is an understatement. We're talking about a government that has been increasing the surveillance state. The revelations with Edward Snowden and Glenn Greenwald's book that came out, and actually they mention it here in the article. They say only the latest revelation of many Glenn Greenwald's new book, No Place to Hide, reveals that the U.S. government tampers with internet routers during the manufacture process to aid its spying programs. Now, I also want to talk about, that we have Cheryl Atkinson, who was breaking the story on Operation Fast and Furious, and we have video. She recorded video of her computers, things just being deleted and moving on its own. She's recording a video, not touching the mouse or the keyboard, and somebody's hacking into her computer, deleting her files and things like that. So the government is literally, this is the least transparent presidency we've ever had. I mean, this is despicable, the amount of spying that is going on, the surveillance state, the police state that is being built, and to take over control of the internet. To take over control of the internet, make it a public utility ran by the U.S. government. This is not the kind of organization that we should trust. Anyway, the article goes on to say, here they even said this here. Is this the organization we should trust to take over more control of the internet? Should we believe that under net neutrality, the government will trust the telecoms to police themselves? The government will need to verify at a technical level whether the telecoms are treating data as they should. Don't be surprised if that means the government says it needs to be able to install its own hardware and software at critical points to monitor internet traffic. Once installed, can we trust this government or any government to use that access in a benign manner? It's obvious. This is me again talking. It's obvious we can't trust this government. This government has used these kind of backdoors. You see the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, they want the power. And this is part of the progressive ideology. I need to impress this upon you as much as possible. You must understand, if you take nothing out of the progressive policy, if you understand nothing other than this one point, what they will do is ask for power of discretion. This is what they constantly, they do things incrementally is what they do. But primarily what they want, the big moves that they do when they're not seeking to take something incremental, when they try to do these big leaps and stretches of what they think they can get away with, what they are doing is asking for discretion. We need the power to be able to do X because of Y. And you can trust us that we're not going to do X, but in cases of Y. So trust us to do this, to have this power and ability. We won't abuse it. We won't use it for anything other than Y, but we need this X power. So trust us. We're told that we constantly hear for the children as a reason. We constantly hear, for our national security as a reason. That is a huge one that I'm frankly sick of. And the one that I'm the most sick of, absolutely sick of, is officer safety. I give that absolutely no credit as an excuse whatsoever. Officer safety is the most garbage excuse that you can have to violate someone's right and usurp liberty. Officer safety is non-existent, and I will tell you why. As I've said before, officer safety is not even a real thing because officers have no constitutional obligation to protect you. Police officers, and I'm not anti-police. I'm pro oath-keeping peace officers. I'm pro officers of the law, public servants who support and defend the oath that they took to the Constitution. But officer safety is not a good excuse because they don't have an obligation to even be there. They can wait until after the incident occurs, which is actually policy that's taking hold in some police departments now. You can look it up on the news. There are police departments now that are not responding to crimes when they're happening. They respond after to investigate. And, I personally, if they have that option at all, if it is an option and they're not obligated to actually interfere and help and save us, if there is no constitutional obligation, then I assume that at all points they're gonna use that officer safety decision in their head and decide that they don't even need to get involved in the situation. And if they decide to get involved, officer safety is not an issue because they could have just decided to leave. That's the way I look at it anyway. But, we're told that this discretion that they want, they're going to be benign about it. They're going to be benevolent dictators. They have all the authority to shove chemicals in your body, lock you away, and detain you indefinitely without a trial, no access to a lawyer, simply because they decided that you were a domestic terrorist and a threat. And somehow you're labeled as an enemy combatant, but who labeled you that? The government did, and there's really virtually no oversight on that. And then, in addition to that, we have the government being able to spy in every aspect of your life. We've got these new smart TVs that are being made by Samsung where they've got the camera, and it just so happens to be reported all of your conversations being had, and this is from the company itself, being reported to a third party off-site. And who knows what the government's doing with that? We already know the government can and does have access to the telecommunications device that's in your phone or in your pocket probably right now or within arm's length. It's got a camera and a microphone, and they can hear and see everything that you do in your house, and they do. Even when you turn it off, they can turn it on unless you take the battery out of it. You can hear I'm on a rant here. I can feel it. I feel like I must have stepped on a soapbox somewhere, but I don't see it around here. Anyway, back to this article about net neutrality. Are we supposed to be able to trust this government with this kind of discretion? And he goes on to say, while privacy and freedom of speech may not be foremost in your mind today because you like who is running the government right now. Maybe you're an Obama supporter. Remember, that government control tends to swing back and forth. How will you feel about the government having increased control over the internet when Republicans own the House and the Senate and Jeb Bush is elected president all at the same time? So that's what he said. This is back in 2014. Let's hope that Jeb Bush does not make it to the presidency. And we currently do have the House and the Senate. So, this is one of those things that when you're creating your own little dictatorship, the left right now, they are okay with more government. And the moment that government passes hands to people that will disagree with them and use that kind of power against them, they're going to have an issue with that kind of stuff being established. But they've essentially set up their own tools for destruction. So the article goes on to say, I want more freedom. And he has a quote here from James Madison in Federalist number 51. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. And that's Federalist number 51. He goes on to say, many of us see the U.S. government as a benevolent, all-knowing parent with the best interest of you and me, its children, at heart. I see the U.S. government as a dangerous tyrant, influenced by large corporate interest, seeking to control everyone and everything. Perhaps these diverging perspectives on the nature of the U.S. government are what account for a majority of the debate between proponents and opponents of net neutrality. If I believe the U.S. government was omniscient, I can't even say this word, omniscient. Anyway, I think it means that like omnipresent, everywhere, all-knowing, had only good intentions, and that those intentions would never be changed, I would be in favor of net neutrality and more. But it wasn't all that long ago that FDR was locking up U.S. citizens of Japanese ancestry in concentration camps, and Woodrow Wilson was outlawing political dissent. More recently, we've seen the U.S. government fight unjust wars, topple elected democracies, and otherwise interfere in world affairs. We've seen the same government execute its own citizens in violation of the Fifth Amendment rights guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. Simply put, I don't trust the U.S. government, nor do I trust any other government, even if my team wins the election. I see any increase in regulation, however well initiated, however beneficial to me, as leading to less freedom for me as society in the long term. For this reason, those who rose up against SOPA and PIPA a few years ago should be equally opposed to net neutrality. So what instead? And this article is wrapping up here. He's got just a little bit left here, guys. What instead? Internet bandwidth is at least currently a finite resource and has to be allocated somehow. We can let politicians decide, or we can let you and me decide by leaving it up to the free market. If we choose politicians, we will see the internet become another mismanaged public monopoly subject to political whims and increased scrutiny from our friends at the NSA. If we leave it up to the free market, we will in time receive more than what we want at a lower price. It may not be the perfect process, but it will be better than the alternative. Free markets deal exceptionally well in the process of creative destruction. Economist Joseph Schumpeter champion as a mode by which society raises its standards of living. Although any progress is not without its impediments, and free markets aren't an instant panacea, never heard that word before. Even U2's Bono embraced the fact that entrepreneurial capitalism does more to eradicate poverty than foreign aid, especially in the area of technology. Government regulation has little, if any, place. Governments cannot move fast enough to effectively regulate technology companies because by the time they move, the technology has changed and the debate is irrelevant. Does anyone remember the antitrust case against Microsoft because Internet Explorer browser? The worst services provided by large telecoms are the more The worst services are provided by the large telecom companies, the more incentives there will be for entrepreneurs to create new technologies. 5 years from now, a new satellite technology may emerge that makes fiber obsolete, and we'll all be getting wireless terabit downloads from space directly to our smartphone anywhere in the world for $5 a month. Unrealistic? Just think what someone would have said in 1994 if you had tried to explain to them everything that you could do on your iPhone today and at what price. Anyway, that is that article, and I gotta say, man, this guy, he nailed it. He nailed it. The free market is the only way that the internet will continue to grow. It has been a free market of ideas. It has had no regulation, so to speak. Very, very limited regulation on the internet. There are some taxes that are imposed from internet commerce and things like that, but the internet has been largely free. It has been the days of the Wild West on the internet. This is what it is, and you get to hear voices like me. You get to hear voices like The Blaze over there. Glenn Beck's doing his thing over at The Blaze. You get to hear people like Dan Sandini. You get a whole bunch of different voices that you can hear. Sam Whitfield, another podcaster who's been working his keister off for 8 years trying to get his station and network on the line. These are these are the kind of voices that you get to hear in the Wild West of radio. We got Haywire Gulch doing their thing with all their hosts, sounding off with Tank and Tony. Let's see, I already said sounding off. The Launchpad with Johnny Rocket. All of these voices, all of these ideas are out there. And of course, there's ideas on the left. You know, the left, they have their Marxist, communist, socialist, progressive ideology that they get to push out too. But the problem is that they're losing it. It's not fair. They want to control the media. Look at what has happened in other countries. All right, let's look at. You know, I'm not a big South American history guy. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know Cesar Chavez. He took control of the media, and that is really where he started to dominate the message. He took control of the media. And what we see here is our government, they understand that new media has been created. They realize that they have dominated the telecommunication companies that are putting out television. And they realize that television is becoming a thing of the past because nobody cares what MSNB Communist or MSNB Crazy or the Communist News Network is spouting off about. Nobody cares. And the fact that these telecommunication companies will not allow programs like, for example, The Blaze on their network, you know, and we already know that these free market ideas, these companies that are giving non-progressive, non-communism, non-socialist, you know, we're talking conservative and libertarian media. There is a market. There is a market for it. They're already getting millions of views. They're getting more than Al Jazeera Network, which is a joke. Really? Al Jazeera gets on there, but the Blaze doesn't? Al Jazeera is allowed on Comcast, but they won't carry the Blaze. Which, by the way, I just recently heard a little bit ago that Al Jazeera actually started beating MSNBC's ratings for some hours, which is laughable. I mean, it is completely laughable. It goes to show you where that form of media is going. Nobody's going to watch cable. Nobody's going to watch that. First of all, the marketplace of ideas is not open. It's not a free market of ideas. You want to get a free market, you got to go somewhere where your viewpoints are, and right now it's the internet. Now I'm concerned that one, the government's going to fund, you know, lefty programs, and we're going to see, you know, these programs that are presented to be grassroots, so to speak. We'll see programs like, you know, Million Moms or Mothers Against, you know, whatever, gun violence, or I can't even remember what they're called now. Bloomberg-funded entities. You know, these will be funded by the state, though. These things they'll be giving out their progressive propaganda, and it'll be state-funded. And, you know, people like me won't be able to compete with it as far as funding because they'll be getting government funding. I'll be reliant on what I can earn off the sweat of my brow and things like that. But these people won't be. These progressives will be funded, and that's something to be concerned about. But in addition to that, where I am really concerned about is the future. What will it hold? What's going to happen? You know, will I be required to have a permit, to have a license to broadcast this show? Will I be required to have a license or a permit to run my blog? Will you be allowed to have the same freedom of speech with the government regulating the internet? Will suddenly FCC standards for radio apply to the internet? We don't know because we don't know what's in this 300-page conglomerate of a bill that was helped to be written by these mega corporations. They had a hand in it. This is not us sticking it to the man. This is corporations bending us over a table. That's what this is. The government taking this as an opportunity to take more power and control. And yeah, they may just simply put a little stamp on it saying, yeah, okay, we own the internet, but we're not doing anything. There's nothing in this bill that even says that we can have any power over it. We just own it. What that does is it creates precedent. Now it goes further. They take a little bit more. They take a little bit more. They take a little bit more. This is what the progressives do. They bite around the edges of an issue. They continue to just incrementally, step by step, take a little more, take a little bit more, take a little bit more. And they do that after they have asked for this discretionary power. So they asked for the huge, big discretionary power like Obamacare. Then they bite her on the edges, and eventually they'll take another large step. That's what they do. That's the whole thing. That's it. So giving them control over the internet is dangerous, number one, and will lead, number two, to more regulations. Even if there's nothing in this, it will lead to it. We don't know what the future will bring. I have no idea what's going to happen. We may be witnessing the death of the internet, at least as it is. Maybe there will be a new internet that will be started. We're going to have to figure out something, but I will tell you this. I have been very discouraged about this. I told you at the beginning of the show I was upset. I didn't know what to do. I felt like, we're losing ground. I was looking for stories that I could start the show with to be hopeful. Not because I plan on slamming you guys and making you guys feel like we're losing and that we're on the losing end of this battle, but because, to show that there is, first of all, stuff to be hopeful about, like C.J. Pearson, which, by the way, we had a comment. Chris, one of our listeners, said he was joking here. The government is going to say that kid has... I'm sorry, the government is going to say that that kid has that disorder that makes him hate the government and label him as a domestic terrorist. Tell him to be careful. So I think that's a pretty good comment there. But, I'm hopeful when we see kids taking a stand for liberty. I'm really hopeful when we see kids that are being brought up by parents that actually have concern for liberty and the Constitution and the American traditions, way of life. I think those are radically important that we continue to teach our children. But I will say that, we're going to have to make a stand, and I don't mean violently. I mean that we're going to have to fight this. It's not enough for us to just get angry. It's not enough for us to just contact our congressman, write them a letter or something and let them know where you stand. The whole point of this show, as I say every episode, is to inspire you. So we have to, number one, win the battle of ideas. We have to educate others. There is a lot of confusion, especially concerning net neutrality, and it boils down to big government versus small government. Government solutions or free market solutions. And when you put it that way, you can explain to a libertarian or a conservative why this is a bad thing. That they think that it's those people out there think that this is us, sticking it to these corporations. And I don't like corporations either. I'm not a big fan of big corporations. I'm a fan of individual entrepreneurs trying to do things, but I'm not a fan of big business, especially crony capitalism. That's the worst. So, there is a difference here. And just because you oppose net neutrality doesn't mean that you're siding with the company. In fact, net neutrality is good for these companies. As I said before, it'll save them billions of dollars a year in trying to pay the service upgrade fees. They won't have to pay it. It'll be me and you that'll be paying it. So, yes, if you like your internet, you cannot keep your internet under net neutrality. You will lose your internet. You will lose your freedom. And I don't know, maybe something good will come from it. Maybe innovation will happen because, necessity is the mother of innovation. It's maybe a new internet will come, or maybe we'll all kick it back to old school and start broadcasting on ham radios. I don't know. I don't know what the future is, but I will tell you, I'm here, and I'm going to adapt. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep doing what I can. You're not going to silence me without one hell of a fight. I'll tell you that. This is serious, and I don't know what's next. I don't know what's next in terms of net neutrality, but I can tell you, if we don't fight it, we don't push back, we don't try to inform others and try to create a real grassroots tsunami, we're going to lose this. If you like your internet, fight for it. If you like your internet, talk to people about net neutrality. If you like your internet, it's in danger. It's being threatened. And, just one little point here. And I heard this joke a long time ago on a show called Scrubs. Some of you may be familiar with it. But, if we have like decency standards on the internet like we do on radio, the FCC is the ones who impose that. So if we had decency standards, what would happen to all the porn on the internet? Think about that. Would all the porn go away? And if all the porn did go away, the joke from Scrubs is if you removed every single porn website from the internet, there would only be one website left, and it would say, "Bring back the porn." So, anyway, with that said, I don't know what the face of the internet will look like, but in the free market of ideas, if they change it, it's going to become like television, and people are moving further and further away from television these days. So, there will be something that we can't even think of right now. There will be, if they take it away, we'll find a new one. We'll create another one. We'll do something with it. It's just a matter of time. Innovation cannot be halted. The government can never work fast enough. So, I want to talk here. We're way over. We spent so much time on that topic here. Anyway, I know I have a lot of other stuff here I want to get to, but let's briefly just talk about this Orwellian double speak. I had a post that kind of sparked this into my mind, and the reason why I wanted to bring it up in the first place. There was a post from one of our listeners. His name is Christian. By the way, he does a lot of stuff on his own as well, so you should definitely check out his stuff that he does. He does some co-hosting with other radio networks and things like that. So you should definitely check out his stuff. He posted in our group, by the way, On The Move Show on Facebook. It's facebook.com/groups/OnTheMoveShow. And anyway, he posted a cartoon. And it's an old cartoon from World War II, and it's got a picture of Hitler sitting on some telephone wires, and he's got his ear up, and it says, "You never know who's on the wires. Be careful what you say." And it had people concerned and trying to practice essentially operational security while they're talking on the radio or on the phone, and making sure that they weren't giving government secrets out and things that maybe the enemy would have found out during World War II that would have been detrimental to us. But I feel like this is today. I mean, I feel like our government, instead of Hitler, it's our government on the wires. It's Obama sitting there on the wires right now listening. We got, the NSA, Homeland Security, all these different organizations that are spying on us. And we're told that national security is the biggest issue. We need to keep ourselves safe. We need to protect ourselves. And the double speak that we're told here, just look at, for example, on this post, Michael commented on this post. He said, "How patriotic is the Patriot Act? How affordable is the Affordable Care Act? How neutral do you think net neutrality will really be?" And this is the double speak. This is the Orwellian double speak. You give words to something that means the exact opposite. Okay, so for example, we mentioned earlier, 1984, the Ministry of Love was really about torturing people, and I believe they had the Ministry of Information, and it was really the Ministry of Propaganda, Disinformation, where they went through and they changed the history books. They literally went through and revised history books to fit the need of their society, and to make sure that their leaders, Big Brother, that they were correct. So if he said something and they found some kind of discrepancy in the history book where he was wrong, they would change. They literally changed the history. So the Ministry of Information is really the Ministry of Disinformation. Look at the Patriot Act. How patriotic is it? Really? I mean, how patriotic is it to be able to suspend the Constitution? How patriotic is it to be able to detain individuals without charging them, without them seeing a courtroom? We got these secret laws now with their secret interpretations in their secret courts. How patriotic is that? I would say it's not very. We have the Affordable Health Care Act, and the Affordable Care Act. First of all, it's not affordable. Absolutely unaffordable. It tripled and doubled healthcare premiums. We've got, it have the word care in it. The Affordable Care Act. It doesn't care. It doesn't care. So many people are getting penalized right now on their taxes. It's tax season, everyone. I just happen to look at my what my penalty would have been if I didn't have health insurance already, and it was $650. $650 is a little bit more than $650, and that would have been painful. $650. Oof, man. I feel sorry for anybody who can't afford health care because first of all, it's freaking expensive. But then you get taxed for not having it. You couldn't afford it to begin with. Now let's kick you while you're down. Affordable Care Act. Not affordable, nor does it care. Net neutrality will not be neutral. It will screw us over. Even the name itself is so neutral. It's, net neutrality. You shouldn't be afraid of this. It's very PC. This is a internet takeover. There is no other way to say it. You can call it net neutrality. What it is an internet takeover. Let's look at the minimum wage. Really what it is people aren't able to get jobs. Putting people out of business. That's what it does. It puts people out of business. And actually, I got an article right here. It's 15 Now supporters close bookstore over minimum wage hike. And this was on, let's see here, progressivestoday.com. This is a website that I often come to. It has a bunch of people that basically try to expose a lot of the silliness of progressives. So anyway, Borderland Books in San Francisco. By the way, this is an article written on Progressives Today. Like I said, it's titled $15 Now Supporters Close Bookstore Over Minimum Wage Hike. So Borderland Books in San Francisco has been in business for 18 years. They've survived the economic ups and downs, but they are being done in by the citywide minimum wage increase to $15 an hour, which has forced the store to close. Ordinarily, this would just be another story about a small business going under due to regulations, but in this case, Borderlands was a big supporter of the $15 minimum wage movement. From the Borderlands blog, in November, San Francisco voters overwhelmingly passed a measure that will increase the minimum wage within the city to $15 per hour by 2018. Although all of us at Borderlands support the concept of a living wage, which, by the way, is another one of those double speak terms, in principle, and we believe that it's possible that the new law will be good for San Francisco, Borderland Books, as it exists, is not financially viable business if subject to that minimum wage law. Consequently, we will be closing our doors no later than March 31st. So that's this month. The cafe will continue to operate it until at least the end of this year. So this is what I'm talking about. You know, the minimum wage will literally eliminate jobs. All right? And then there is no wage. If you have no jobs, you can't get a job. You can't get a wage. So it's not helpful. It's doublespeak. And then this moves us over to another article that we have. It's written by our listener and friend of the show, Mark Watkins. He started a blog. It's markwatkins.com. And I want to talk a little bit about his topic that he had in his article. He talks about the Shared Responsibility Act, okay? And it says, can you pick which one of these didn't come from Atlas Shrugged, from the desk of Mark E. Watkins? And he said, one of these didn't come from Atlas Shrugged. Can you name which one? The Anti-Greed Act, the Anti-Dog-Eat-Dog Act, the Shared Responsibility Act, the Fair Share Act, the Railroad Unification Act. The correct answer is number 3, the Shared Responsibility Act. Though it's not an act, but actually the Shared Responsibility Payment, a term presently being used by the IRS. This Washington Examiner article, authored by Byron York, entitled Dems Run Away from Obamacare Penalty They Imposed, included this paragraph. By the way, Democrats don't like to call the Obamacare penalty a penalty. Its official name is the Shared Responsibility Payment. But the fact is, the lawmakers' intent in levying the fines was to make it so painful for the average American to ignore Obamacare that he or she will ultimately knuckle under and do as instructed. Mark goes on to say, I'm currently watching the Atlas Shrugged movie trilogy, and when I came across this article, I immediately thought of the Shared Responsibility Payment came directly from those movies. I had to look it up for the verification, and it comes directly from IRS guidelines. You can read about it in the IRS's individual Shared Responsibility Payment located here. He provides a link which state, for any month in 2014 that you or any of your dependents don't maintain coverage and don't qualify for an exemption, you will need to make an individual shared responsibility payment with your 2014 tax return filed in 2015. Progressives have a long history of changing names of policies and titles when they become discredited or unpopular. Examples of that once being embraced, being called progressives, but then they have changed to calling themselves liberal. Global warming to climate change to climate chaos is another. Now it's Obamacare when it's popular, but then it becomes Affordable Care Act or the ACA Act when people learn the truth behind the law. The further we go to sorry, I can't read. The further we go, the closer we get to living out the George Orwell's predictions in 1984 novel. Double Speak is alive and well. What's next? Will we have to start worrying about Big Brother watching us? Never mind. We already have crossed that bridge. You can read more of his thoughts at markewatkins.com. He's a listener of the show and a friend of it, and I'm happy to read his article here. And I got to say, I completely agree. You know, shared responsibility. What we're talking about is not shared responsibility, but redistribution of wealth. That's what it is. It is redistribution of wealth. So let's move forward here. I want to talk about this really upsetting story with Gabby Giffords. Oh, my goodness. This really upsets me. Okay, so I made the post on my Facebook, and I'm going to read some of your guys' comments here. I want to read them on the air. But first things first, this is a real thing. The U.S.S. Gabrielle Giffords is preparing to enter the water for this first time. Gabby Giffords posted it on her Facebook. It will be christened this summer. And, you know, I find this a bit disturbing. And number one, I feel like they're very lowering the bar a whole lot to get this kind of recognition. What has Gabby Giffords done for this country? She was the victim of a shooting. All right. So is that an accomplishment now? It's not an accomplishment to be a victim of a crime. What has she done? She's used this. She's taken her becoming a victim to try to go after your gun rights. I don't think there's anything admirable there. I think that's disgusting. I think using a tragedy, something horrible conducted to making her a victim against herself, I think that using that as justification to come after your right to keep and bear arms is despicable. And, you know, I think a lot of you agree with her. We got Jeff on Facebook saying, being a veteran of the Navy, it makes me ill to see this. Aaron said, WTF. Leo says, what is this ship's history? Does it get shot and then go destroy other ships' right to defend themselves? And Gary says, WTF. Kind of name choice is that for a battleship? Question mark. Gabby, this is Leo again. Gabby, that's an intimidating warship name, and these are the kind of funny stuff. But I mean, it's true. I mean, this person is advocating for the abolition of your right to keep and bear arms, essentially guns. She's against guns. She's an anti-gun extremist. She's a gun-grabbing nut job. Okay, she was shot. That sucks. I'm sorry, Gabby. I really am, and I feel for you. And I wish you nothing but the best, honestly. But when it comes to taking my right to bear arms, I don't give a crap. I don't give a crap. You can't use your victimology to take my right away. My right has never hurt anybody. My right to keep and bear arms has never hurt anyone. Millions of Americans are out there being law-abiding citizens, not hurting anyone. And you're going after that right, you know. I completely disagree with using victimology to try to push an agenda. It's an emotional argument. We need logic. We need reason. And that when I see things like this, when I see people using emotion, I'm thankful that we live in a republic that has checks and balances, and it's not supposed to be moving quickly. You know, I hope that our checks and balances stick around, because I don't want to see an emotionally charged argument, cause us to lose our rights, the government to move too quickly, things like that. But lastly, I just want to point out, this ship, it's a ship of war. It has guns. It has a lot of guns. It's a killing machine. So Gabby's okay with her name being on this? Does she not see the irony here? Anyway, you know, she spent her life now trying to take away your guns, and now she's got her name on the biggest guns that we can possibly find. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. I just kind of wanted to mention it. It wasn't really something I had a whole lot to talk about, but I wanted to mention it and see what you guys thought. So let's wrap this up here. We got about 19 minutes left in the program that we could do. I don't plan on using all of it, but, we'll see. Anyway, I want to give you guys my take on the future. What will we see? What's going to happen? I can't tell you if we're going to win or lose. I'm not a mind reader. I don't have that ability. I don't have a crystal ball. So what I can tell you is that they're either going to get better for us, for liberty, for the cause, or they're going to get worse. I mean, they're either going to get better or they're going to get worse. We, those of us that are going to continue to keep fighting for liberty and keep liberty alive, we're either going to win or we're going to lose. And that's entirely up to you guys. It's up to me. It's up to you. Are we going to give up? Are we going to throw our hands in the air? All right? And if we lose, it's not over. It will never be over. We can fight. We can continue to fight. We can, even in the worst case scenario. I want you to imagine, because I got a little upset, frustrated and a little down just thinking about net neutrality and all this stuff. I'm just like, man, it seems like we're just getting kicked and kicked and kicked, and they just keep coming at us from every front. But I want you to imagine a time, what is the worst we've ever had as a country? The worst. We fought our way out of the worst. It may come to that again one day, hopefully not, but we literally fought our way out of the worst. We had Great Britain imposing taxes on us and trying to pay for wars that they fought for us, and that was their justification. They taxed the crap out of us, but we didn't get a say in government. And then a lot of the conflict started happening. The king wanted to flex his muscles and try to basically show us who's boss, and he sent troops here. We had a lot of problems. We had the Boston Tea Party. We're fighting against this kind of tyranny. They start putting soldiers in our homes. These soldiers are raping our wives and daughters, spying on us, beating us up. And there's nothing that we could do about it, because when we report it to their superiors don't care. You're reporting to an officer in the British Army that one of their soldiers was raping your wife or daughter. Whatever, they don't care. Well, they're not going to do anything about it. The whole reason why we're being quartered, the troops were being quartered in our homes, was because it was punishment from the crown. They wanted them to punish us. So that's the worst. I mean, we've already been there. We're not there now. But the point is that we can reverse this. The whole idea of freedom, the whole idea of liberty is essentially just an idea of individuals being able to self-govern. You own yourself. They can't kill that idea. This idea is out there. The genie's already out of the bottle. Pandora's box has already been opened. This concept of popular sovereignty and self-governance and individual liberty, these things are out there. You can't unteach everyone this. There will always be this idea out there, and people will flock to it because it has merit. People like the idea of freedom. People will see, even if we lose. The progressives, they'll run the country into the ground if we lose, and they very well could. And this country may never be the same. We may never recover. But what I will tell you is just look at the programs. Look at the programs that they have. The Patriot Act, National Defense Authorization Act, Obamacare, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Look at these programs. Are they successful? The post office. Are they successful? Do people like these services? No. The answer is no. People do not. People always have problems with these services. Social Security is a joke. It is a joke. I will never see any of the money that I pay into Social Security. I'm a millennial. I know I won't. It's one of those things that you just accept it. But the thing about it is that even if we lose, even if liberty-loving Americans lose, the progressives win and they take it over, and we are in essentially a communist state, a socialist bloc. Even if that is the case, the people will see that this isn't right. These programs don't work. They've run the country into the ground. It will literally be like the Dark Ages again. And just from to give you a little historical perspective, because I love ancient history. I love learning about ancient Rome. I love learning about the Dark Ages and things like that. And this was an interesting point in time, because ancient Rome, they had all these advances in technology, and they had they created the aqueducts and these huge testaments to their societies, these big ginormous monuments that people could see. Wow, that's amazing. That's a marvel. And then after the collapse of the ancient Roman Empire, things went downhill. Technology was lost. Information was lost. Science became, heresy. It became, religion merged with the state. That's when all this stuff started to really happen. Religion and state started to merge around the collapse of the Roman Empire. I mean, there was still a lot of it, but not like these little fiefdoms that are set up, in the Dark Ages. So you're in an age then when you could literally look at some kind of monument built in the past and realize that you can't build that now. You can literally look in the past and see that the past was better than the present. And this is where we are now. If the progressives win, and they very well might, but I'm telling you, I'm going down swinging. I'll fight the good fight, and I'll battle along every step along the way. When we get hit, I'll take it with you guys. I'm fighting with you. I'm committed to this idea, this concept of individual liberty, popular sovereignty. I believe in these things. The free market, individual choice, the right to choose what goes into your body, all of these things, just individual rights. And they're not just given to us by the government. It's not given to us by the Constitution. These are innate. These are self-evident rights. These are human rights that everyone possesses. So, if we, in fact, do lose, you can count that the progressives will usher in a new age of darkness. We will be able to look into the past and see that it was better than the present and maybe the future. But the idea that we'll all forget and that we won't know what happened, I don't believe it. I don't believe that you can kill freedom. I don't believe that you can unteach it. I think people know deep down in their core that that tyranny is wrong. They can tell that freedom is right. This idea, it's right. It's just natural. It feels natural. That's why it's natural law. So, I don't think this will die. I don't think that we will ever totally lose. I think we'll always have a shot, and there may come a day when we have a rebirth of libertarian ideas, conservative ideas, maybe. But I want to send this message out to you guys in the last few seconds here of the program. Don't lose hope. You just have to keep fighting. You have to dig in. You have to dig in your foxhole and just keep fighting. Don't allow yourself to be frustrated. I know we can only really affect a small little portion. I know you only have so much control over what goes on, especially geopolitically. But we do have control over our small little corner of the universe. We can try to educate people, bring people over to our side. We can try to learn more and increase our own education. We can try to spread the message of liberty and keep that flame burning. Don't let it be extinguished. We need to teach our children, just like CJ showed us. We need to teach our children about the concepts of liberty and never let it die. Never let it die. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you all tuning in today. I had one hell of a show. I mean, this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it a lot. This is the longest show that we've ever done. It's 2 hours and 51 minutes now here, according to my time. But anyway, I just want to first just say thanks so much for you guys tuning in week after week. You guys are the reason why we do this. Members of the Mack Pack, thank you so much. We appreciate your continued support. Don't forget to tune in next week. We broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do so on haywiregulch.com, where we simulcast. And in addition to that, our main hub for everything is OnTheMoveShow.com. You can listen to the broadcast there. You can also follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. That's another avenue for you to listen to the show as well. You can like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.